God-fearing, American-loving individuals as we are, we're going to bring up members from the American Revival Band. We're going to go ahead and do the national anthem, the only national anthem for the United States of America. Gentlemen, where are you at? Or do I don't have to sing this, do I? You don't want me to sing this thing, I don't think we want. We could. Oh, there you go. Go. Thank you, gentlemen, so much. America. Ladies and gentlemen, again, welcome to the Defend Our Michigan's Fight for Self-Preservation. We're going to kick off the speakers right now. We're going to get them going. This first speaker that I'm going to bring up, and you guys, I hope everybody has a program. If you don't, make sure you go up to the program. Our first speaker knows legislation, and he knows Second Amendment legislation. He's a hawk. He understands it, and I think what's important is when we take this fight out beyond where we're at now, that we understand the facts and we understand what's going through Lansing. This gentleman has those facts. He understands it. He's very, very good. He owns a YouTube channel called 2AEDU. He's phenomenal at it. Ladies and gentlemen, Micah Young.
All right. Hey guys, how's it going? So, we have the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution, a well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That's like the most specific thing there possibly could be, isn't it? It means if there were to even be a scintilla of gun control, it would be repugnant. Early Supreme Court decision, Marbury v. Madison, says that all laws that are repugnant to the Constitution are void. Now let's look at the Michigan Constitution. Shout out to Michigan and all the good people here. Article 1, Section 6. Every person has the right in defense of himself and the state. That's pretty darn clear too. Notice I didn't say hunting anywhere, or recreation, or collecting, which those are all very fine hobbies, obviously. Now, I love the whole Bill of Rights, but the Second Amendment was put there not for if, but for when they come for all the rest. They're coming for the First Amendment. They're coming for your right to privacy. You could go to prison right now in this country and in this state of Michigan for misgendering somebody. Now, I don't think it's a coincidence that they started off this new legislative session. The Democrats took control very, very narrow majority in the Michigan House of Representatives. In the Michigan Senate, they have the governorship, the Attorney General, the Secretary of State. They didn't fool around. As soon as they started this session on January 11th, 2023, gun control was one of their top pieces of agenda. And we need to change this, but here's what is like, it's terrible, right? But here's what Democrats do well, and I'm using big air quotes for those of you listening. When they promise their constituents they're going to do something, they do it. And they started off with gun control, basically on the very first day. Then there was a tragedy that happened in Michigan State. A gun-free zone, let's call that what it really is. It's a criminal empowerment zone. Because everybody knows the only thing that can stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. And people were there unarmed, and it's very, very dangerous to have gun-free zones. This person wasn't prosecuted for previous gun crimes they had committed, which shows that gun control doesn't work. And the more people that have guns, the safer our communities are. But these people hate America and they hate Michigan. So they started off with this gun control agenda. And they quickly passed an 11-bill, 3-subject matter package. We're looking at red flag laws. Those have been passed, guys. They're not going to go into effect till next year, but they've been signed by the governor and passed through the Michigan House and Senate. This is probably the worst, because it not only violates the Second Amendment, but the Fourth and Fifth, the whole Bill of Rights, and 14th Amendment. It wouldn't even be possible to have a law like this in Michigan or the United States of America. But here we are. You can have an old roommate from 10, 20, 50 years ago that feels your risk to yourself or others. They can red flag you. The cops will come to your house. I did an interview and a video with my friend Representative Bob Bazat. He's a patriotic Second Amendment supporting rep in Livingston County. And he's a longtime sheriff, and he said, you know, that's one of his worst fears is what's going to happen? The police just come to your house? You don't even know, because it's not like a normal criminal trial. No, it's called an ex parte hearing, meaning they say take the guns first, then due process. That's a joke. That's no due process at all. You don't get to face your accuser. You don't get to come with your lawyer to put forth exculpatory evidence. No, it's not that simple. It's not just an ex-roommate. It could be any relative of yours, including ones you haven't seen in a long time and don't agree with the Second Amendment or your politics. It could be an ex-girlfriend or an ex-wife, husband, boyfriend, whatever. Imagine how could that go wrong? And they take your guns, and then you have to come back and prove that you're innocent to get them back. This is literally insane. But that's not all. They also passed these so-called safe storage laws. Yeah, making it safer for the criminal, right? Because think about it. 3 in the morning, you're asleep, the glass breaks. You're your own first responder, and you know that. That's why you have a gun, and you have it cocked-locked and ready to rock to protect your family, your wife, your beautiful children, right? Now, when the criminal comes in armed, because, look, all these laws only affect the law-abiding, obviously, because by their sheer nature and definition, criminals don't follow laws. So he comes in ready to go, ready to do death, irreparable harm, really bad things, and you're going to be fumbling with a cable lock, with the safe. Hopefully you remember your combination. So they call it safe storage, and a lot of people get excited about that, especially criminals, because it makes them safer when they come into your home. We've also seen so-called universal background checks pass, which is a licensing registration scheme, and it's also a confiscation scheme, because registration always has in the past, and I believe always will, lead to confiscation. Why do they want to know where all your guns are at unless they're planning to come get them, right? So right now, because again, these laws have passed, but they're not going to go into effect until next year. You might go out shooting with your uncle, your friend, your neighbor. Hand him your shotgun for a few minutes. See, we need to remind all of the hunters in the state of Michigan. I was talking to former governor candidate Tudor Dixon last night. Hung out with her at my favorite state representative, Jamie Thompson's event. She's also a 2A fighter. And Tudor looked at me and she said, how are we going to get the hunters involved? Well, obviously, everybody that's here right now, you guys get it. You guys are awesome. And I appreciate you being here. But we have to do more. When we leave, we have to talk to our friends and remind them that, look, guys, you could actually become criminalized and go to jail for a long time in the state of Michigan soon by handing your shotgun or your .22, it doesn't matter, to somebody else without first going through and getting these universal background checks so they can keep track of where every darn firearm there is in the state of Michigan. Now, that's the stuff that's already passed. They're also saying that they're looking at an assault weapons ban, magazine restriction ban. They've even put forth a bill that would outlaw BB guns for youth unless they're directly accompanied by their parents. Now, what do you think that is? I think it's pretty obvious, isn't it? I want gun culture to be ingrained in America like it has for all these years. Because if you take the kids away from their BB guns, which is how a lot of people learn safety, it was their first gun, they got familiar with them, you make it foreign, and people are afraid of things that they're not familiar with. You know, I get people coming in and making comments all the time on my YouTube videos, and they'll say stuff like, well, here in Great Britain, and look, lots of good people live there, but we fought a revolution against Great Britain, and we're supposed to be the United States of America. And they come in and they say, well, what's the big deal, man? They want to take your AR-15, your AK-47. We never even had that here. And that's what happens. When you remove a generation away from the Second Amendment, you lose it. And you could literally lose it forever. Now, there's a lot of doom and gloom. They want to restrict where you can vote. If you choose to exercise your right to keep and bear arms, you wouldn't be able to have a gun within a certain distance of a polling station. These remote polling places, it could be in a shopping center. Yeah, a lot of this is a trap to try to criminalize good people. There's so many, I don't want to bore you guys, but I've done tons of videos on my YouTube channel. It's 2A, EDU. I'm also on Rumble, Locals, all the other places. But there's a lot. And they keep saying, we're just getting started. Now, it's doom and gloom right now in Michigan in so many ways, but I want to give you guys a little bit of encouragement. And this was written by a man in his early 30s, July 4th, 1776. And when Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence, along with the other founding fathers, he said all men are created equal, and they're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. And among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that's a beautiful thing. Just think about that. If you can have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, what more could you possibly want? Well, that's awesome. But we have a government here now in the state of Michigan. And what's the purpose of government? Well, Thomas Jefferson wrote about that too. He said that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. And that's you. They only have power if we consent. And we all need to get more involved. And I want to focus real quick on the local level. Because when you get to Washington, D.C., it's a swamp, it's a mess. I mean, Lansing's a mess too, but it's hard to focus on that. I call him the former vice president in office, doesn't even know who he is, where he's at. You're never going to get to talk to him, and you probably don't want to, so that's good news. A lot of times it's hard to meet your United States senator or representative. But on the local level, we need to start getting involved, because the other side is, and they have been for a long, long time, you need to make sure that you're keeping up with your city council, your township trustees, your county board of commissioners, your Michigan representative, and your Michigan senator. And there's a lot of bad ones in public office, but there's a heck of a lot of good ones too. And people mainly just call to complain, but we need to get more involved. Keep track of what your public servants are doing. I mean, they do work for you. And if you want a government that operates at the consent of the governed, if you do nothing, unfortunately, you kind of just consent by default. And that's what's happening a lot. Not with you guys, but again, all of your friends, people that you go to church with, people that you hang out with around town. Make sure you remind them of what's going on here. Because we're right now in the middle of a paradigm shift where we have two factions in this country. We have people that still love America, and we still have people that love the United States and this flag. And now with the White House, they're flying different flags prominently, front and center. And there's people that no doubt want this to become a communist country. And we can never, ever, ever let this become a communist country, because if we do, our children could live in 1,000 years of darkness. We don't want that. Look, America's different than the rest of the world. It always has been, and we need to make sure it always will be. If we lose this republic, there's nowhere else to go. You can't go to another country. We have to stay here, and we have to fortify, and we have to defend these founding documents, which are supposed to be the supreme law of the land, right? So I want to encourage you guys. It's pretty tough in this state right now. I'm not going to lie. They're literally wanting to bombard us with so much gun control that most people are just putting their head in the sand. But this is nothing new. The Bible says there's nothing new under the sun, and I agree with that. And don't forget, all of your rights, they're endowed by your Creator. These are the laws of nature and of nature's God. And at the founding of this country, they had just formed the First Continental Congress, and they were getting ready to have this great experiment on self-governance of the people, by the people, for the people, where the only reason a government would be allowed to exist at all is to protect your natural, God-given rights. Government doesn't grant rights. They're supposed to be your public servants that are sworn. They swear an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution of the state of Michigan and of the United States. Well, about 250 years ago, Ben Franklin was asked by a woman. She said, "Sir, what have we? Do we have a monarchy? Or do we have a republic?" He said, "We have a republic if you can keep it." He meant that for the founding fathers, and he meant that for all of the people in between, and he means that for you today. And I want to close with this, because I know there's a bunch of awesome speakers. Kyle Rittenhouse is coming tonight. I'm kind of honored that I get to be standing on the stage he's going to speak on. But we're in a culture war, big time. It might be kind of cold right now, but if you remember the summer of mostly peaceful protests, sometimes it gets kind of hot, doesn't it? If you go back to the mid-1800s, we had the United States Civil War. A lot of people would say that it might have been a second Revolutionary War, and I wouldn't say they were wrong in saying that. There was a battle that had erupted, and people were literally sitting there picnicking on the side of a hill. And there were cannons going on off in the distance, and musket balls were getting closer, and they kept on picnicking because they were actually in the middle of a Civil War battle, and they didn't even know it. And I think that's what's going on right now with this culture war. So many people in Michigan, good people in their own right, are either just sitting there being willfully ignorant or just ignoring it and not taking that extra effort to talk to their friends and their family and their elected public servants. And it all boils down to one thing, and that's all it ever has been and all it ever will be. This is a battle of good versus evil. Evil always has prevailed. In Michigan, it's prevailing way too much right now. And evil always will prevail when good men do nothing. So we have to do something. We have to be encouraged. We have a lot to lose, and we need a lot of winning coming up here because we are in trouble. So I encourage all of you, and remember, your rights come from God, not government. And the Second Amendment says, shall not be infringed, and that's what it means. All right, guys, thank you. Thank you.
Micah Young, ladies and gentlemen, 2A EDU. Watch him on YouTube. He's got a ton of information, a ton of great videos on there. I was just talking to some people down here, and, you know, Phil Robinson has been a good friend of mine, and I don't care what the newspapers say. I really don't care. It doesn't matter. Because the honesty is this. If you think tough men are scary, wait till you see what weak men can do. And that's what we're seeing in legislature right now, right? So we have to stand tall. We have to stand strong. The next gentleman that I want to bring up has been strong. He's been very, very strong in fighting for your rights. When we were putting this event together, we started putting this event together in January, believe it or not. Started reaching out to all kinds of gun advocacy groups and gun rights groups and different things like this. You would be disheartened to learn that there are gun groups in this state that said, nope, we're not going to touch this. We're not going to touch this. And you'll go on their social media and they look like they are the strongest advocates for your rights. And they're not here today. They're not here today. And so, again, when I say look out for the people that are out here because they're standing up and they're sticking their neck out for you, I truly mean that. We have to look out for each other. And the next gentleman that I'm bringing up, he is the executive director for Great Lakes Gun Rights and one of the fiercest advocates that is a pain in the side for legislators. I absolutely love this guy. Brendan Bedreau, ladies and gentlemen.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming out today. I know it's difficult in the middle of the week to come out, but this shows your commitment. It's not that the people that aren't here are committed, but you're just a special kind of committed. Maybe we should all be committed, right? Yeah, I appreciate the welcome from John. And, you know, it's obviously been a tough year here in Michigan when it comes to the Second Amendment and other issues that we care about. As an organization, Great Lakes Gun Rights believes that, the voice of the people, the voice of voters and constituents across the state must be heard in Lansing. There is a serious disconnect between what is happening in Lansing, the Lansing bubble, and what is happening in disconnect from the people in the districts. And what Great Lakes Gun Rights does is makes that connection. We try to find people who are like-minded, gun owners, pro-gun Michiganders, people who are just concerned about the growth and scope of government control in our lives. And we give you the tools that you need to hold your politicians accountable. During the fight earlier this year, we fought as much as we could, and they still got done what they wanted. But here's a lesson that we all need to remember, is if you don't fight over every inch that they try to take, they will take a mile. And that's why, as an organization, we got involved very early on in the beginning days of the new legislative session, and of course after the tragedy at Michigan State, which was used for political expediency by people who are looking to pass gun control in Michigan, full stop. That's exactly what they did. In the wake of the shooting, even while the police, before the police even had an opportunity to report what was going on, many Democrats were calling for gun control. They didn't know what kind of gun control they wanted. They just wanted gun control done. And of course, the bills that they introduced were the ones that they were already talking about doing, and it had nothing to do with what happened at Michigan State. So here we stand now. Democrats are still in complete control. They've passed 3 major gun control bills. And now it's up to us to first make sure that we hold the line. That's what Great Lakes Gun Rights is doing. Every opportunity that they try to take to pass gun control, including in the state budget. How many of you knew that the state budget had gun control in it? They put gun control in there. They disarmed you if you want to go visit your capital. And they've disarmed their own staff too, in Lansing, one of the most crime-ridden cities in Michigan. Number 2, we're looking at legal strategies. The courts are what they are. Of course, we got a good ruling last year in Bruin, but now we actually have to see the courts do what the courts need to do, which is actually enforce Bruin. Court rulings can take time. They can take years, and what we've even seen the Supreme Court do is just not do its job. So number 3, and this is the one that we're really focusing on, is holding politicians accountable in the election season. Ultimately, politicians have one thing in mind, is to stay in power. And money, that's fair. And many of these Democrats who are representing swing districts think that they're going to get a free pass for their votes for gun control. They've been told by their caucuses, they've been told by the governor that you're safe voting for this stuff in the next election. But it's on all of us here to make sure that that's not true. If you are not involved in holding anti-gun politicians of both political stripes, Republicans and Democrats, to be clear, they will continue to trample on your rights. Because they will just assume that, they didn't vote me out, I guess I can keep voting against their rights. So Great Lakes Gun Rights is working on mobilizing gun owners and like-minded individuals in key districts across the state to make sure that these politicians hear from you, and that ultimately some of them are going to have to lose their elections over the gun rights issue. And I hope that you'll join our efforts in that. I'm sure some of you have heard that there have been recall petitions filed against 5 Democrats so far, all of whom voted for red flag gun confiscation, universal gun registration, and for the mandatory storage laws. As I understand, Lansing is freaking out right now because nobody's tried this with the new laws as they've tinkered with them over a decade ago. Ultimately, we don't know how it's going to turn out, but this is an opportunity before the next election cycle to hold these politicians accountable. So if you live in any of these districts where Democrats have had recall petitions dropped against them, and Republicans too, if they voted wrong on gun control, look to see how you can get involved. As candidates appear, look to see how you can help them. It's crucial that you be involved in the process, because if you are not involved in the process will be involved with you. There's some old dead guy that said that with politics, if you're not interested in politics, politics will take an interest in you. So you have an opportunity at your local level, at your county level, at your city level, to push back against the growth of government, to push back against the advance of gun control. Don't get distracted by the shiny object in Washington, D.C. You can do a lot more here at the local level. It can be very depressing while you see what's going on right now, but take control at your local level. There's various organizations out there that are taking over local county GOPs, that are taking over county governments, that are taking over city councils. This is what the left has done. Do the same thing that they're doing. Take back the local governments, take over the local GOP, and force through the things that you support. Because what politics ultimately is the adjudication of power. It's the person who is in power who gets to make the decisions. But you, as the people, get to decide who is in power. So, and ultimately, what do we want to do? We want to restore rights, right? We want to make sure that we have the right to keep and bear arms for the defense of ourselves, our families, and our neighbors. And the truth of the matter is that all the gun control laws that pass this year will do nothing to make our state safer. In fact, they just further trample on our rights. We have research that shows that red flag laws do not deter crime, and neither do universal gun registration or even mandatory storage laws. So don't buy the lies that the media is pushing or that the left wing is pushing on these gun control laws. They will not make our state safer, but I'm preaching to the choir here, right? But be armed with the facts so that when you're talking to your lawmakers, that you can tell them the truth. So that's all I have. Thank you all for being here, and keep fighting.
Brendan Madro, Great Lakes Gun Rights. Those are the types of people you should be supporting when it comes to people who will advocate and fight for our Second Amendment rights here in the state of Michigan. It's incredibly important, guys. Just to give you a heads up, there is some water. There is a cooling tent. I know it is hot, but hey, it's July in Michigan. You're either going to get rain like tomorrow or you're going to get this. So there is a cooling tent down there. There's some seats and stuff if you want to get down there. Water's down there. So just make sure you guys stay hydrated out there, okay? And make sure we get our guys up here some water too so they stay hydrated. So if someone wants to get those guys some water, that'd be great. Our next speaker comes from Michigan Open Carry. Now, Michigan Open Carry has done a lot on the front of fighting the legalese, actually fighting for Second Amendment rights, actually fighting in court against a lot of that type of stuff and some of these infringements that are going on. They're the people that are behind the scenes. They've got an army of lawyers. They do a fantastic job of really kind of doing it. They need help, though. Guys, fighting litigation is not cheap. It's expensive. And the speakers that you're going to hear from later on today will tell you, and some of them are still speaking today. And what the Democrats do very, very well is they do lawfare, right? They'll go ahead and bleed your bank account to death until where you just literally submit. And MOC, Michigan Open Carry, does a fantastic job of stepping up to the plate and saying, "Now we got this. We got this. We help you out." So I would absolutely encourage you guys to go down there and visit Casey Armitage, who's our next speaker. Go down there and visit, help the donations, help this funds, and help all the other people, because I guarantee you there's going to be people out here, and probably myself, that at some point are going to need their help fighting this type of gun restrictions. So, ladies and gentlemen, MOC Casey Armitage.
Hi guys, I don't know whether to say good morning or afternoon now, but I am Casey Armitage. I am currently serving as the Vice President of Michigan Open Carry, and I'm also the Director of Regional Operations. Michigan Open Carry got started in 2009 as an advocacy group promoting the lawful open carry of a holstered gun. And since then, as John was talking about, we have really grown very effective at the litigation and legislative aspects of protecting our Second Amendment rights here in Michigan. And as such, I believe in putting the best person to describe all of that right here with the microphone. So I would like to introduce Mr. Tom Lambert of Michigan Open Carry so that he can give us a little bit more detailed information on our litigation efforts and why you should donate to our Michigan Open Carry Legal Fund.
Thank you. One of the things Michigan Open Carry has done since its very founding was do the absolute most that it can with the least amount possible. Over the years, Michigan Open Carry again and again and again has done something, you've ever heard the phrase, hit above your weight class. In terms of organized Second Amendment organizations in Michigan, Michigan Open Carry is on the smaller side. In terms of impact, like actual tangible impact that affects you individually, Michigan Open Carry has had one of the biggest and largest effects in the state. And along those lines, the way we get there is by fighting back, by taking chances, by not standing down. You heard Brendan from Great Lakes Gun Rights here talk just a minute ago. Michigan Open Carry has joined with Great Lakes Gun Rights as plaintiffs in a lawsuit where together we're suing an entire branch of the state legislature, both the House and the Senate. Talk about David versus Goliath, that's exactly what's going on. And I'm going to be honest with you. The chances, it is an uphill battle, absolutely, but it is a chance that has to be taken. And be clear, you have to get creative with how you work on this stuff too. This case isn't about the gun bills or isn't about the content of the gun bills that were passed. It's about how they were passed. We have this little thing in this state, along with every other state in the nation and the federal government, called the Open Meetings Act. The intent is that people like you and everyone else should be able to participate in the legislative process. Well, when the Democrats were passing these bills, they understood that, maybe a lot of their arguments aren't necessarily the strongest. So to tamp down on their having their problems called out, what they did is they would hold a 3-hour hearing and only let supporters of their legislation speak. That's wrong, no matter who you are and no matter what the law says. Then they did it again and again and again. And so Great Lakes Gun Rights and Michigan Open Carry, we stood up and said, enough, this is not okay. I don't care what your subject is. It is not okay to do this kind of stuff and completely ignore the citizen participation aspect. This has got to stop. Someone has to speak up and challenge it. And that's what Great Lakes Gun Rights, again, and Michigan Open Carry are doing, is pushing the envelope every little area that you can. And people have also asked me, well, Tom, what about those bills? Do we just sit back and take them? Heck no. Let me make that clear. Groups like, again, Great Lakes Gun Rights, Michigan Open Carry, other groups in the state, Michigan Gun Owners, Michigan Coalition for Responsible Gun Owners, and national groups. I'm not going to go into all the details, but I'm just going to tell you that we are working on addressing the actual content of the bills. You will see something at some point in the future challenging their efficacy, but that's probably the most I can say for now. So what you should do if you want those bills challenged is you should support each and every that you can. Pick your favorite, start there, awesome. But then if you have the capacity, support even further that one organization or support the next organization and the next organization and the next organization. One of the silver linings, if you will, with all this gun control that's being pushed right now is the state gun are working together better than they have in years. And it is awesome to see everybody come together like this and stand together and push back. Oh, yeah. So again, support each and everyone because we're all fighting in different ways. You might say, well, Tom, you're Michigan Open Carry. No, Open Carry isn't for me. That's cool. That's fine. I was just talking with somebody back there and said, we've never said that everybody should have a gun. That's not what it is. It's everyone who wants one should be able to have one. One of the main things Michigan Open Carry has always said is it's not up to you, it's not up to us to decide for you. It's up to the government to decide for you. It's up to you, each and every one of you, to decide what's best for you in your particular situation. And that's what all of us are fighting for. And keep in mind, open carry is often the tip of the spear because it's the thing they hate the most. Because it's really easy to lie about gun owners when there's no gun owner standing right in front of you. it's really hard to say, well, this guy here, he's really crazy and he's just going to go on a mass shooting spree when he's standing there with a big smile on his face being incredibly respectful to everyone. It starts to dispel those myths, and you become an advocate for not just for open carry, but for the Second Amendment. When you become an ambassador, when you just be yourself, exercise your right, and be that responsible citizen in your everyday life. So even beyond supporting the organizations financially, that's how each one of you in your individual day, in your individual lives, can support the Second Amendment. So thank you very much for your time, and I'll be around today if you have any other questions.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you for everybody for coming out today. And one last plug for Michigan Open Carry's legal fund. Our tent's set up over there, and we'll be happy to take any and all donations, whether they be check, cash, or card. Thanks, and have a great day.
Thank you to MOC, Tom, and Casey. We appreciate you guys in the fight that you're doing and the fight that continues today. The next person I'm going to bring up, I don't think is a stranger to a lot of people. They call her the Liberty Loudmouth. She's a veteran activist, a good friend of mine and a lot of people in this movement. She wouldn't be kind of in any one political camp. She believes in freedom and liberty above everything else. She doesn't call herself a Republican. She doesn't call herself a Democrat. She calls herself a damn American and a liberty activist. So with that, I'm going to bring up my friend Kristen Megan Kelly.
Oh, there's a ramp, so maybe Biden could get on this stage. Well, a lot of you know me as a health freedom scientist and activist over the past 3 years fighting all the lies. So I actually do need to kind of give a warning because part of my job is making sure people aren't experiencing heat stress. So for those, my veterans here, you know, I'm officially declaring it SWASCON 5. So due to this sweaty condition, make sure you are hydrating and shade, and please walk around to get a breeze. First off, I came here today because I fully believe in the Second Amendment. I am a veteran of 9 years on active duty in the Air Force. No, I was not administrative. Some of you call it the chair force. And I don't mean to be a cliche, but I take it very seriously that my oath does not expire. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my journey and why I get so offended by people who are freedom-minded now being labeled extremists. So I left the military as a whistleblower in the fall of 2010. And it was 2 years after that I was at a speaking event, and that's the first time I heard about the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association. And it just so happened to be that is the first time I heard about Oath Keepers. So there I got to meet both Stuart Rhodes and CSPOA founder Sheriff Mack. And I formed really good friendships with these men, and they really taught me kind of behind the scenes what happens when we talk about our rights. Our rights should not be a polarizing topic, and as soon as you see a story of a cop killing somebody, or regardless, everyone is automatically the pro-cop, and the other side's automatically it could have been a criminal, but everyone chooses a side without allowing due process, because we all have internal biases. That's how I had a really good relationship with Sheriff Mack, and due to my work in recruiting so many individuals, he awarded me a lifetime membership because he is very libertarian, and conversations that we have had, and this makes, maybe you don't agree with me, but I just ask for a moment that you remove your emotions to view your internal objections clearly. So I am kind of a liaison between the people that are F the police and the thin blue line people. Because I do think that we have an issue with our policing system for the simple fact that I'm not anti-cop. I'm a CSPOA member. I'm just wanting people to remember our foundations. Now, Constitution isn't just our foundation, but we are supposed to have sheriffs and peace officers. So rather than being on either side of the camp, try to, on both sides, the opposition. Because if we really looked at how those individuals are designed to not uphold laws, they're designed to protect our rights. And I don't know if you're not familiar with the SCOTUS decision that the police were told that they do not have a duty to protect us. And I'm not bashing police and saying that. I'm just letting you know, what does that tell you? You have a Second Amendment, and all of your lawful weapons that you carry are all faster than 911.
Amen.
So we have those resources when needed, but we have to kind of bridge that divide of the discussion, because when we have all these tyrants in Lansing putting through these red flag laws, so you know, years ago, 2 veterans that I'm friends with were part of that. And they had crazy ex-girlfriends and ex-wives who were, you know, the poster child for parental alienation and wanted to disparage their spouses. So just based on an accusation, not only did they lose their gun rights and their guns were taken away, but they had their passports taken away. So while I do believe there are people who could be a threat with a firearm, I still believe that shall not be infringed is a very black and white issue. We have a mental health crisis in this country, which, being a scientist, I really think is tied to how we're being poisoned in every route of entry. But I just really want to resonate with you today in explaining why I am admitting here. I am longtime friends with Stuart Rhodes. If you paid attention, Oath Keepers is pretty much disbanded. They were given an absolute bad name because of a few bad actors and were labeled a white supremacist, Christian extremist, even though there's a lot of people of different colors in the organization. I can't tell you how many people, you may know the loud Michigan liberals on Twitter, take all my pictures with Stuart Rhodes and think it's a gotcha moment. Well, my pictures are public, and I've had them on my podcast. What we need to do when we have individuals who went peacefully to J6, when you have individuals who still might have their Oath Keepers t-shirts, do not be afraid to admit somewhere. Don't be afraid to say you have a t-shirt or you were a member of something. I have friends who won't even talk to Stuart now because they're afraid of how it will label them. Look what happened to Kyle, which will be here later today. Too quick, the media rips the narrative. And I've been a victim of believing a headline, specifically with the Andrew Tate situation. Look that up if you want to learn about that. We have to recognize there is no age limit on being able to defend yourself. And we also have to remember that there are people on the left, the right, all sides of the aisle, anarchists, libertarians, voluntarists, Green Party, that all carry. Open, concealed, they have them in their homes. Don't think that all people on one side are just all anti-gun. But what we need to do is reach out and extend a hand and get those people that own guns and are pro-Second Amendment to recognize we agree on something and we can use their voice to unite to stand up against the tyrants, because I always say we outnumber the sociopaths. We cannot sit here and let people in suits just write on paper and say, oh, we're going to take your guns. And I know that we just had another group up here talking about their lawsuit, but I just want you to know I host a podcast called Vets and Visionaries with Kristen Megan for WeThePatriotsUSA.org. If anybody is a victim, you have to be a victim. It can't just be because a law was passed. You have to become a victim of the law, and you can send an email. We represent people anytime your rights are violated. 2A rights, parental rights, land rights, all these mask vaccine mandates. We've got to start voting with our dollars. We have to support local litigation, federal litigation. $5 here and there, when you have 1,000 people do it, it goes a long way. As someone who's been in my own lawsuits, the goal of the opposition is to outspend you. You're not just suing a corporation, we're suing the government on a lot of these issues. So I just want to remind everyone, don't stick to the divisive issues around 2A and other freedom rights. Remember, people have a reason for how they feel. Take a moment, have a conversation, and hear someone that you may disagree with on face value, and you'd be surprised how much you can unite. And I just want to say, if you are worried about anyone coming for your guns, Biden will never get you your guns if you just keep them upstairs.
They call her the Liberty Loudmouth for a reason. I love that woman. She's awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take just a real quick recognition of some of our our sponsors out there. I think it's important. Again, I think Kristen touched on something that's incredibly important. The Democrats outspend Republicans almost every single time. I'm not a rich man. I would imagine that most of you guys aren't rich. You'd probably be in the Bahamas or on your own yacht or island in Alaska or something doing some crazy hunting trip. But dollars matter. $5 matters. Every single one of these organizations, these candidates, it all matters. Because these guys are going out there and they're breaking their backs to do the right thing. And they need funding to be able to do it, to be able to get marketing out there, to be able to reach the people, to let people know that they're out there, that they can be accessible. They need that help. And they need your help. So please consider a donation today. Please. It means everything. And if it's $1, it's $1. If it's $1,000, I'll come give you a big hug. But it all matters. The first person I want to go ahead and bring up here and recognize is Michael Hoover, who's running for U.S. Senate. Michael, if you want to come up here real quick. Michael Hoover has been going across the state and really across the country talking to a lot of folks, a lot of people, and has been doing a fantastic job. He's got a tent right out there. It's the biggest one with all the big flags right out here. Michael Hoover's out there. He's done a fantastic job of making sure he reaches the people. She was just on, what show were you just on? Channel 10 against Slotkin about guns. Yeah, about gun control. So I just wanted to give everybody a good recognition of Michael Hoover. He's not ashamed to be up here and support our Second Amendment, defend it, because without the Second Amendment, we have nothing else. So guys, please visit his tent. He's got petitions over there. Make sure he gets signatures. They need that to get on there. Obviously, we need to get rid of our Democrat senators, and we could use a +1 in the Republican tally in Michigan. So guys, Michael Hoover, thank you so much, sir. Appreciate you. The next person I want to bring up here is a good friend of mine. He's just kind of blown up in the state just recently. Who's heard of Turning Point? Who's heard of Charlie Kirk and all that stuff? You guys ever heard that? Well, Turning Point Action is loud and proud of Michigan. They work with a ton of, and a guy that's become a real good friend of mine. Come on up here, Luke. Luke Malice has been, I don't even know how he does it. He's got a ton of energy. Maybe it's because he's young. I don't know. But he's got a ton of energy. He comes to every single one of these events. He's got a tent right down here at the front entrance. He's out there with Miguel Pilar out there, who's actually from Ionia County. He probably just lives a few miles down the road. And these guys are traversing the state to make sure they gather the amount of people they need, the young people, and bring them into our conservative movement, because they're out there. They're really out there, and we need to touch them and reach them. These guys have been doing a tremendous job, really doing it. So again, I want to thank you very much, Luke, for everything that you're doing, and for everything that you and Miguel as well. Ladies and gentlemen, we have another speaker coming up. Do we have him out here? Is Joel out here? There he is. Okay, so we got one of our biggest sponsors out here. The one who's actually put up a 308 and AR-10 out there that you saw, Uncoiled Firearms. This man that I've already won, even though the drawing hasn't happened, I've already won this thing, and it's not rigged. Joel Swisher is the founder, the president, the creator, the boss man of Uncoiled Firearms. He has a huge tent over there. He is selling firearms, so make sure you go over and take a look at what he's got. Make sure you register at the tent for the 308, because guys, this guy stands. I love this guy's passion, his tenacity, and he's going to speak to you a little bit about what he does and what we need to do. So guys, Mr. Joel Swish.
All right, guys, first of all, I do need to apologize. My speech was probably written more for your friends that didn't show up here, the people that you said should come in, but they didn't have the time or they couldn't take it off work. So please don't take it personal unless it is something that applies to you. So again, my name is Joel Swisher. I own Uncoiled Firearms. We're in Livonia, Michigan. There's a common saying, and this saying, we have all heard it 1,000 times. We've been hearing it since we were kids. I remember my father, my grandfather saying it over the kitchen table. There's celebrities like Ted Nugent said it over the radio and television. And believe it or not, I remember one time when it was okay to do it, one of my high school teachers said the same saying. They are coming for your guns. So I don't know how many times you've heard those exact words, but since you're here today, you understand we are under attack. Whether you're a collector, you got a large selection of vintage or modern firearms, if you're a hunter with just one 12-gauge shotgun, if you're really into them and you've got a whole room dedicated to your firearm collection, or maybe you're like me and you make your living off the industry, they are coming for your guns. You know that. That's why you're here today. But that is not what I'm here to talk about today. I'm not here to talk about the theys. The theys we cannot control. The theys are very well funded. They are tenacious. And actually, believe it or not, they believe in what they're doing just like we do. A lot of them. Some of it's politics. I'm here to talk about us. I'm here to talk about the things that we can do. It's the only thing that's harder than having a sensible conversation with somebody who is anti-gun is trying to get somebody who is pro-gun to do something to stand up for your rights. Nearly impossible sometimes. So, a lot of the guys, they'll spend hours, they'll argue over Glock, SIG, Smith & Wesson, which one's better. They'll make fun of your 6.5 Creedmoor. They'll post memes making fun of you, but try to get them to join FPC or GOA, almost impossible. And then speaking of FPC and GOA, when you guys did join, was it just so you could keep your pistol braces? Or have you continued to support them and the companies like Michigan Open Carry and stuff like that? Make sure you're staying on top of it. Don't just do it for one topic. We cannot control what the theys do, but we can control what we do. I have just a small story. For about 2 years on the floor of our gun store, I had a kiosk set up. This kiosk was specifically set up for one thing: fighting anti-2A bills, supporting pro-gun representatives, and for donating money. It was almost impossible for us to get anyone to do it. We had to pull it. It was just taking up valuable space. So that's the point, is that you gotta be willing. When those things are in front of you and somebody makes it easy for you, do it. Sorry, I got lost here. Okay. We've all had that feeling that we're losing, and I'll be honest with you, we are. In a lot of ways, we are losing this fight. When we do win a court case, all we get to do is keep what we already have. That doesn't feel like winning. If we donate, we're donating to a cause. Our money's spent trying to keep what is already ours. That does not feel like winning. They use our tax dollars to take away our rights. They can afford to lose. That does not feel like a fair fight. But we have to step up and we have to keep swinging. We have to make time to support our own cause. We're still in control of our side, and we can still make a difference. So please, get out there and do something. Strengthen your community, support your local gun shops and ranges, encourage your friends and families to donate to firearms-friendly organizations, and write your representatives. It matters. Keep attending pro 2A events like this, and go to the range and celebrate liberty while you still can. Thank you.
So Joe Swisher, if you want to go check out Uncoiled Firearms Inc., it's over there. He's got a lot of really cool stuff over there, and obviously make sure you go ahead and sign up for the registration. That's where that AR-10 is going to be. Make sure you get that right up there. Now, guys, a couple more people I want to go ahead and recognize. A good friend of mine and someone who's been a large voice in the Hillsdale Republican, who's familiar with Hillsdale County or Hillsdale College, right? They've done a fantastic job in standing for liberty, and they keep the fight up. So I wanted to bring up my good friend John Smith, who obviously loves wearing his Hillsdale versus everybody shirt. But this man works tirelessly in front of the scenes, behind the scenes, to make sure that Hillsdale doesn't fall, just like the rest of the state is trying to hold themselves up. So I just wanted to give recognition to this man, because he's done a lot of work for the people, and he needs it. So please just check him out on Facebook. Check out Hillsdale. Help support Hillsdale as well. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate you, man. Absolutely. Hillsdale is fantastic. So for our next guest, we have the CSPOA. We have, if anybody doesn't know who the CSPOA is, it's the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association. Who's heard of a sheriff by the name of Darleaf? Anybody recognize that name at all? Is that okay? So you might recognize that guy. So Sheriff Darleaf is part of the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association. They believe in the constitutionality of what a sheriff is supposed to do and what their actual job is. As far as the county and law enforcement when it comes to that. So Darleaf and the CSPOA, but John Rattan, who also happens to be from Hillsdale, is the state president of the CSPOA for the state of Michigan. He teaches a lot of constitutional classes down in Indiana. He's got a shop in Liberty Hall down there in Hillsdale. And so John Rattan's going to come up here. He's going to be our next speaker to talk about the CSPOA, what we can do, how we can grow that movement. I know that we've got a couple people that are actually running for sheriff here in the state. Where are you at? Dean Brandt? Dean Brandt? Oh, there he's standing right next to me. Dean Brandt is running for sheriff, Allegan County, running for as a CSPOA. We've got another gentleman down in Berrien County named Jason Long who's running CSPOA. And then we have another guy up in Lake County running for sheriff by the name of Lonnie Sherry. So we've got some good constitutional sheriffs. We have to support these guys. If you want to make sure that the FBI isn't knocking down your door and that these sheriffs will stand and tell them to get the heck out, these are the guys you need to elect. And if you can't spend the money, then you need to spread their name and you need to reach out to the people in those counties that you know and your friends. You need to help them door knock. You need to help do all these things for them because we need more of them. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Mr. John Rattan from the CSPOA State Director. Also, is that correct? Also running for Hillsdale Sheriff. So come on up, John.
So how's everybody enjoying everything today? Thank you to John Rocha and a lot of the people who put this together. Putting these types of functions together is not an easy job. It takes a lot of time, takes a lot of money, takes a lot of frustration. Richard Mack, who started the CSPOA, was supposed to be here today, but he had some family emergencies and couldn't make it. So he asked me to speak on his behalf. Now, Sheriff Mack is the one that started the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association. He, back when the Brady Law was coming out, he sued the federal government. He sued the Clintons because what they were trying to do is they were trying to take the federal government and usurp local officers. They were putting it up to the sheriffs to decide who could have guns and who couldn't, and if somebody got through their web, then the sheriff could be prosecuted and sent to jail. Richard Mack said, no, not at all. The sheriff doesn't work for the federal government. The sheriff doesn't work for the governor. The sheriff doesn't work for the county board. The sheriff works for the people. And he's put there by the people, and he serves the people. His job is to be the sheepdog. He is the one that interposes between an overreaching federal, state, and local government. That's his job. Without that sheriff, without that firewall, then we're no better than any other socialist country, right? The sheriff is the protector of the shire. That's where the word comes from, the shire reeve. Now, the sheriff's ancient power comes all the way from the Magna Carta 1215, chapter 61. Prior to the chapter 61, the sheriff was second only to the king when he was in the realm. But when the sheriff was in the shire, he was the same as the king. Now in chapter 61, the 25 barons said if the king or any servant of the king takes anything from the people, and the people didn't think that it was right, they could go to 4 of the 25 barons, and if the 4 of the 25 barons said no, the king couldn't take that from you, the king had 10 days to give it back, to make you whole. And if the king didn't give it back, the sheriff, in keeping the peace, had the authority to assail the king. How many people know what the word assail means? It's a forcible taking. So the sheriff had the ability, the legal ability, to forcibly take from the king to give back to the people to make them whole again. Now that's the ancient power of the sheriff. Our founding fathers understood history, and they looked at history to put our documents together to give us this republic. As Franklin said, a republic if you can keep it. Now, I don't know if we've kept it very well. In Michigan, Dar Leaf, Sheriff Leaf, has been the only CSPOA member for a very long time. And how many people from Barry County here?
Barry County, right here.
Has that man tirelessly served you?
Dar Leaf.
Has he done his job?
Yes, he has. He has stood by us.
He has taken a beating to defend the people. Because, see, that's what the sheriff does. I know a lot of times people go, well, you know, that's not unconstitutional because the Supreme Court didn't say it was. Well, who is in charge of what is and isn't constitutional? Is it 1/3 of the branch of government, or is it we the people? It's we the people. And the sheriff takes an oath to that Constitution. And when he takes an oath to that Constitution, that oath is sacred. Now, prior to Chapter 61 in the Magna Carta 1215, the sheriff had state authority, but he worked for the state. See, here's where it changed. The sheriff now has state authority, but he doesn't work for the state. He works for the people and keeping the state where they're supposed to be. And in America, that's a limited government. The Constitution doesn't limit the people. It limits the government. In 1803, John Marshall said, anything that is repugnant to the Constitution is void, and all judges in every department are bound by that instrument. So the government is bound by that instrument, the people are not. The people are freed by that instrument. And the sheriff is the one that is the stopgap. That's why constitutional sheriffs are so important. Now, there's two ways that you can win an election. You can win an election with lots of money, so you can sit at home and send out, 10, 15, 20 flyers and be funded by huge corporations that have the money to do that. And now the people that do that, you think they have your best interest at heart? Or do they have the corporate shill's best interest at heart? See, you can either win an election with lots of money, or you can win an election with lots of people. Because every people gets the government they deserve, either through action or inaction, or through knowledge or ignorance. So you need to know what that Constitution says. You need to know what that sheriff's job is. You need to find a sheriff that's a CSPOA member. You need to find a sheriff that believes in his oath. And if you don't have the money to put it in his campaign, you better be knocking doors. You better be spreading his name at church. You better, around the Thanksgiving table, be talking about this sheriff candidate that you think is going to be the one to defend your rights. Because they can either be bought by corporate money, lots of corporate money, or they can be bought by the people's money and promoted by the people and then protect the people. So you can only win one of two ways. Now, I get a lot of it. A lot of people go, I just don't have the time. We got church on Sunday and Sunday evening, and then, of course, we got prayer meeting on Wednesday. The kids are in soccer. We got, then the youngest one, she's playing volleyball. I just don't have the time. Get your priorities straight. Without the Constitution, you don't have any of those. Without a sheriff that's going to defend that Constitution, you don't have any of those. So that should be your first priority. Taking care of that Constitution, making sure that you get a sheriff that's there that's going to be that stopgap between an overreaching local, state, and federal government and the people's rights. How many people like this idea of this red flag law that we've got in Michigan? You think it's a good thing? Well, do you think we have to wait until it goes all the way to the Supreme Court to decide whether it is or isn't constitutional? Do we all know that we believe that before the state can take your property, they can only do it but by due process? Do we believe in that? I think our founding fathers did. Our founding due process before any of those things are taken from you. But with the red flag law, what they do is they come in and they take that stuff, and then you have to go to court and prove yourself innocent. I thought you were innocent until proven guilty. So the due process happens after they take the stuff? Does this make sense to anybody? Okay, so if you've got a county sheriff that believes in the red flag law, what do you think is going to happen? All it's going to take is your neighbor to go, I don't like him. We've had a dispute, so I think he wants to hurt himself. And what's going to happen? If your county sheriff's not going to stand up and go, no. Now I will say this, the Livingston County Sheriff, I was shocked when that red flag law got passed. He was one of the first ones to step up and go public and go, not in my county. We're not doing it in my county. And every sheriff should have stood up and said that. Did 2020 not teach us anything? Did 2020 not teach us anything? Who do our rights come from? Government? They come from the Constitution? No, they come from our Creator. It says so. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, and that's what the red flag law. How could one that takes an oath ever enforce a red flag law? That's what you have to ask yourself. Is your sheriff willing to interpose himself between an overreaching government and the people? See, the CSPOA believes in a peaceful solution to where our Constitution is going. We believe in a peaceful solution. And that peaceful solution starts with your county sheriff. Now, if the county sheriff is the sheepdog and he raised his hand, he said, I'll be your sheriff, I will take the slings and arrows, then he should, shouldn't he? I get this all the time. They go, well, you know, if you don't like that, I guess you can take it to federal court, and then if it goes all the way up to the Supreme Court and they decide that what we're doing is unconstitutional, then we won't do it anymore. Okay, well, that puts the onus on the people, doesn't it? So let's say I take the oath as sheriff, and I say, well, you don't like that, so go ahead and take it all the way up through until it goes to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court says it's unconstitutional, I won't do it anymore. Well, you're going to be into it for about, $240,000, $280,000, $300,000, right? Should you be the one doing that, or should it be your sheriff that puts his foot down and says, no? No. And the governor goes, well, we don't like that. We're going to take you to court. Take me to court. I'm the sheepdog. I raised my hand and said I would defend these people. It's my job to defend them in court and on the street. That's my job when I raise my hand. The onus is not on the people to do that. So, everybody here can be a member of the CSPOA. If you go to cspoa.org, you can become a member, a monthly member, you can become a yearly member, you can become a life member. But know that your money goes for a good cause. One of my good friends, Sheriff Brad Rogers, who was the sheriff of Elkhart County, Indiana, he had an Amish constituent that sold some people raw milk, that wanted raw milk. And the Department of Agriculture decided to raid that farmer every month. And then pretty soon the farmer got a letter from the Department of Justice that said in 2 weeks he had to show up in Detroit for a grand jury. So that farmer went and got the sheriff, Brad Rogers, and he said, look, this is crazy. So Brad went to the people that bought the raw milk. He said, did you guys buy raw milk from this farmer? Yeah. Did you guys want raw milk? Yep. Did anybody get sick? Nope. So he went to the farmer and he investigated the farmer. He said, okay, how are you milking your cows? Well, it's like this. Are you doing things cleanly? Yes. No harm, no foul. So Brad Rogers wrote a letter to the Department of Agriculture and said, do not come into my county again without written permission and without a true bill and without stopping at my office first. Because if you do, I will arrest your officers and I will impound the vehicles, and in 30 days we will paint them white and brown, and the people of Elkhart will thank you for the new cars. And by the way, you can get with your buddies at the DOJ and tell them the same. The farmer got a letter the next week, said, disregard going to the grand jury. Why? Because they knew the sheriff was right. Because the sheriff is the Shire Reeve. He is the defender of the Shire. He's the defender of the county. He's the one that takes the oath to defend your rights. Now, Brad Rogers wouldn't have been able to do that without the support of the CSPOA. We had another sheriff, Sheriff Finch from Liberty County, Florida. Same thing, one of his deputies pulled a car over one night for a taillight out. The man happened to have a gun in the car. He wasn't a felon, but he didn't have a CPL. So the officer arrested him for carrying a concealed weapon. When the sheriff found out about it, he said, no, we're not doing that in this county. It's not going to happen. He went to the jail, he let the man out, he took him off the roster. That deputy who didn't like him went ahead and went to the governor, who happened to be a Democrat at the time, and that governor suspended Sheriff Finch, said you can't be sheriff anymore. Sheriff Finch, with the help of the CSPOA, took it to federal court. Federal court came down on the governor and said, you don't get to make that decision, the people of that county do. So you will reinstate Sheriff Finch. And in that county, the people's Second Amendment rights were solid. So you have to push to get these CSPOA officers. Please go to that website and become members. We are a big believer that we can change this, that we can make it what our founders dreamed that we should have. We can keep our republic, and we can do it peacefully. We can do it through the county sheriff. But the county sheriff is only as good as the people that support him. So go around today to all these different vendors that are here. Thank them for being here. Get their information, support them. These are the same people that are going to support you. And at all cost, support your county sheriff. If he's going to be constitutional, you support him at all cost. And with that, God bless Michigan, and God bless the United States.
Mr. John Rattan, State Director, CSPOA. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got one more speaker. We're going to take a quick break. The band's going to come up here, kind of revitalize everybody, get you a little cool because speakers have arrived. Our speakers are here and they're ready to go. They're ready and they're fired up. So we want to make sure we get a little bit of time. But our next speaker, before we get there, I just want to go ahead and bring a couple people. Ryan from Magnum, where you at, Ryan? There you are. Ryan from Magnum Sports right there, guys. He's got a 10 over there. He's done a phenomenal job. He's been a great asset for us. He's a wonderful supporter for us. So make sure you go check out some of the cool stuff they got. The Humvee they got over there, which is really sweet. Let the kids play around there and get burnt on the hot Humvee stuff, because that's what kids should do at these age, right? They shouldn't be dressing up like girls and changing their pronouns. That's not what they should be doing. Guys, our next speaker, we had one more, didn't we? Yeah, so our next speaker is Melinda Pago. Melinda Pago is the co-chair for the Michigan Republican Party, but it's not just that. She is the Commissioner of Muskegon, the GOP chair. She has done so many things in so many arenas. She's a firebrand. She's one heck of a speaker. I absolutely love her. She's everywhere in the state. In fact, she was somewhere earlier today doing some speaking. So she's incredible. Make sure you, when you talk to her about how awesome her red shoes are. Melinda Pago, my friend.
He's a liar. I don't like to speak. What do I do? Do I have to use this, John? Can I put it on something or no? Oh, all right. Yeah, so I don't like to speak, actually. I like to recruit people and help them flip their local governments. That's what I like to do. But this is a Second Amendment event, and I was in my car 5 minutes ago trying to figure out something to say. So our rights come from God, not government. Everyone here probably already understands that. I don't need to repeat our Second Amendment that we're a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, because that's why we're all here. We all understand that. And that's not to go hunting. It's to keep ourselves free from a tyrannical government, which is what we've been under in Michigan for the last, 4 years now? 3-4 years? Our rights are prescribed by God to defend ourselves. During early war times, pastors allowed for Sunday drills after service to learn how to protect themselves and repel an invasion of deniers of their congregation's God-given rights. Wouldn't that be nice to have our pastors allow that again, to do that? I know there's some oath keepers and militiamen, and it'd be nice to have our pastoral leaders do that for us again. On January 8th, 1790, in the first annual address to both houses of Congress, George Washington said this: "There is nothing so likely to produce peace as to be well prepared to meet an enemy." And something my pastor always has said, a failure to plan is a plan to fail. So I would recommend that everybody, take up their arms and be prepared, get trained, and be prepared to meet an enemy. That is our best course of action to protect ourselves. How many women, Carrie, out there? A few. So some statistics that I looked up says that in 2008, 2009, it was about 13% of women are self-protected. And now in 2021, 2022, it's up to 22%. That's not very many. I think we could greatly reduce violent crimes against women if every woman was prepared and trained and carried. So that's what I would recommend everybody, a woman especially. Oh, there's my kids. My little guy just turned 7 in June. Christian, can you stand up and go like this? Christian, raise your hand. He's a little shy. He's over there. I said, okay, well, we'll get you a gun. And get him a gun. A BB gun, but it's still a gun, right? Back in the day, little guys not much bigger than him were trained to fight for their family and for their rights that come from God, to protect our country. I don't have much to say again. I don't like to speak much, but let's see what I'm going to note here. James Madison said, when drafting the Second Amendment, to allow creation of civilian forces that can counteract a tyrannical government. Well, I already said that. So basically, we just need to prepare ourselves and train and plan ahead. That, I believe, is our real best course of action to protect ourselves. I believe that each one of us is right here, right now, handpicked from God, down from heaven, for such a time as this. All of us have something to give. One person can't do it all, but we can all give something, and we're better together. And we just need to keep fighting on and moving forward. We're called to fight for righteousness. We're not in charge of results. God is, and our victory ultimately is in Him, and our final resting place is in heaven, not here on this earth. But while we're here, I'm going to continue fighting every day of my life, and I encourage all of you to do the same. We need to unify with those things that we agree on, and stop all of the division of the things that we don't agree on, and come together so that we're stronger, because we are better together. That's about it, John. I don't have much to say. I don't have anything to say. But I will say, because I am the co-chair of the Michigan Republican Party, is during Constitution Week this year, on September 22nd to 24th, we'll be on Mackinac Island for the 35th Biennial Mackinac Leadership Conference. If you don't have your tickets already, please go to mygop.org and get your tickets. We have some amazing and phenomenal speakers that are supposed to be released soon. So I will see you up on the island. It's always a fantastic time there. Thank you.
Melinda Pago, ladies and gentlemen. Before we go to break, I just want to give a quick shout out to Stephen from Rittenhouse. Where are you at? Fabrication. There he is right there. Ladies and gentlemen, he's got some really cool pieces down there. Once you get out by the break here, go check him out. He's veteran-owned, Marine Corps brother. I absolutely love that, and I'll support that 100%. Veteran-owned business, small business. So make sure you get out there, you support him, take a look at his stuff, and help him out. So I'm just before we get the band out here, I'm just going to introduce real quick a friend of mine and an outstanding advocacy and leader throughout the state of Michigan and really throughout the entire country, my friend Tammy Clark.
Hey everyone. How many of you were here from the very beginning, about 11 o'clock today, 11:30, when the band, American Revival Band, kicked us off? How many of you would like to hear from them again? Yeah, I think we need a little energy break, right? So we're going to have some music, give you guys an opportunity to get some food. If you haven't visited Iron Pig, amazing barbecue, make sure you support them. But I just wanted to introduce this band because I discovered them a few months ago. And the first time I heard them play, somebody had introduced them to me and I thought, yeah, okay, I'll come and watch them. And I was blown away because of the lyrics and the patriotism, the unapologetic, bold patriotism that these guys are showing. So this is a fairly new band, but the members of the band are very experienced, talented musicians that come from all over. So they recently formed because of their sense of righteous anger over what was being done in our country, just like some of us that stood up because of our righteous anger, right? So I'd like to bring up the American Revival Band, my favorite new band. And how many of you would like to hear some of their cool songs, including Don't Touch Guns? American Revival Band.
You.
Don't touch my guns? No. What are we gonna do that for? What are we doing right now?
Tornado heading for the end of time. I feel it rumbling like a long, long string running up and down the line. Storm brewing, I can feel it deep in my bones. I will fight to stay free until the good Lord brings me home. If you love the old red, white, and blue, if you stand for the flag of this land, then I will stand with you. Justice is a-coming like the light of the midday sun. Days of greed and corruption are all but over and done. We, the people, are waking up and we are pissed. This is the land of the free, and free is the way we'll live. If you love the old red, white, and blue, if you stand for the flag of this land, then I will stand with you. Politicians think they're smart, think they got it all figured out, making themselves filthy rich while leaving we the people out. We the people are waking up and we are pissed. This is the land of the free, free is the way we'll live. If you love the old red, white, and blue, if you stand for the flag of this land, then I will stand with you. say, we like to call this song Shotgun to Galveston. I get myself in all this for again, like she's marrying him. Shotgun to Galveston. Come on, shotgun to Galveston. Shotgun to Galveston. Come on, shotgun to Galveston. Shotgun to Galveston. Shotgun to Galveston. Just can't win without giving in to what might have been, and get the hell out of Michigan. Shotgun to Galveston. 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 Going home like a roam out on the western plains, where I don't see her face anymore. Shotgun to Galveston. 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 We got a country to save. Well, we could watch Hollywood as they laugh through their teeth and politicians destroy my beloved country. They waste our hard-earned money on their wars overseas. They don't care about you, they don't care about me. But my friend, at the end of the day, folks like you and me are gonna pave the way. If you hail from the land of the brave, and you still believe in the US of A, we got a country to save. Well, we can talk about where you're from, who it is that you love, places you've been, and the things that you've done. We can talk about gender, we can talk about race, we can talk about the color of the skin on my face. But my friend, at the end of the day, folks like you and me are gonna pave the way. If you hail from the land of the brave, and you still believe in the US of A, we got a country to save. We got a country to save. Big John, you guys ready? Ladies and gentlemen, we're the American Revival Band. If you like what you hear, we got a table over there with stickers, information on it. We're on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, all that good stuff. We got Longboard Johnson on the guitar, Pete Bass on the drums, Rob Hardy on the bass, and I'm Doc Huckleberry. We're glad to be here. Support your Second Amendment. Shall not be infringed.
Yeah, I gather you. I didn't want. Yeah, there's you were a lot of good people there. So, give us time. Yeah, I got you. I got you. Start
Hello, hello. How's it going? I'm fine. How are you? Nice to see you. Okay. We get another home. We can hug. Yes.
Tim, I guess we're gonna get back here. So Lucas and Kyle are in the house. Let's make some noise for them. If you guys want to make your way back here, we're gonna play a special song we've been working on, playing for quite a while, called "Don't Touch My Guns." I'm gonna take a minute, let you guys get back here. Make sure you go pop. You're gonna want to sit here and listen to these boys talk. So we're gonna play "Don't Touch My Guns" in just a couple minutes here. Hang out. Beautiful day. Some of you guys might not have been here earlier, but I feel like it's a really good omen when a bald eagle was just flying, circling over us earlier. It was awesome.
3 of them.
If you're proud to be an American, say hell yeah! This song's called Don't Touch My Gun. You can drop my John Deere tractor. You can borrow my big old truck. Catch me on a Friday. Might loan you a couple bucks. Use my hose to water your lawn, and you can pet my dog named Jeff. Better not find you fooling around with the steel underneath my bed. Don't touch my gun. Don't touch my gun. If I see you on my 45, better be on the run. Don't touch my gun. Don't touch my gun. Telecaster, you can sing on my microphone. Take a pinch from a dime bag if you wanna get a little stoned. Sip my bottle of whiskey, just leave a little bit for me. But you better understand there's one place, man, those hands should never be. Don't touch my cup, don't touch my cup. If I see you, don't touch my cup. You can take my little sister, you can run off with my wife, bring me up for murder one, you can pull me away for life. There's a million things I can see you doing.
Lucas gained national attention. National attention. We needed a Snapchat photo of his AR-15. Can you imagine the audacity? The audacity of taking a picture of your gun and then being turned in for domestic terrorism. Domestic terrorism for taking a picture of your gun. That's insane to me. We got a chance to meet this young man last night, and his story is incredible. I'm not going to tell his story. I want him to tell his story, and I want him to tell you exactly why this is important, what we're doing here today. So without further ado, guys, I'm going to introduce to you Michigan's very own Lucas Gerhardt. Lucas, come on up, brother.
Hello everyone, my name is Lucas Gerhardt. I am a local resident of Michigan here, proud to be Michigander. However, it's been increasingly hard recently with all the tyrannical stuff our governor is doing here these days. But anyway, my story begins in, well, I'll start a little bit before my story. I'll tell you who I am. So I grew up in a pro-American family. I'm 24 years old, you know, so rather young. My father is a Marine Corps colonel, retired. My mom's an American patriot. I grew up in this family, and I had a lot of American values instilled into me at a young age, and I spent my life serving my community. I became an Eagle Scout real early. I tried to do as much as I could for my community. I spent time as a sheriff cadet sergeant with the sheriff's office where I'm from, and I tried to do as much as I could to help my my community out. So naturally, I spent time in college too as a criminal justice law enforcement major. I went to a place called Lake Superior State University. It's pretty far up north, the last exit on 75 there. And what ended up happening was I went there and started speaking the truth and speaking the values of conservatism and basically just saying the truth of what I believed. And what ended up happening was that a lot of communists and Marxists on campus, they did not like that. They did not like the fact that I was up there and not kowtowing to their tyrannical ideology, and that I wasn't keeping quiet, you know, like they would like. So it started out, you know, for the first couple months there, I ended up having police people, you know, they called 911 on me multiple times, you know, just by saying things that they disagreed with. These people were so sensitive and so weak that they felt like the city police department had to be sent to me to actually deal with my comments. And these were not anything extreme. It was mainstream Trump conservative type stuff, you know, and that went on for 2 years. I stayed at Lake State for 2 years, and all kinds of crazy things happened. I had my car windshield smashed out. I had, you know, the police at my door every 2 weeks. You know, I was searched repeatedly. This faculty was very relentless in their pursuit to shut me down and to kick me out. And eventually, after 2 years, in August of 19, they succeeded. Because what happened was I posted a picture of my rifle and I shared it privately with my friends. And it just so happened that a woman I had blocked, specifically blocked, went out of my way to do it because she was a nut. She took a picture of somebody else's phone and sent it to the school. And the school in turn sent it to the Sault Ste. Marie Police Department, and then they came to my dorm eventually. But I had no idea any of this was happening. It was such an offhand thing. Now I'll tell you what I said. I took a picture of the rifle and I said, "This ought to make the snowflakes melt," and by snowflakes I mean snow. Now, to everybody out there, I mean, that pretty much, you know, it doesn't sound too scary, does it? You know, just a double entendre joke about offending people and about literally melting snow up in the UP, you know? And it turned into this big thing because I showed up on campus. Lake State has a rifle policy. You can turn it in and to the armory. So the first thing I did, I turned the weapon into the armory, and I went to my dorm and I just went to sleep. And the police were at my door within like an hour, and you know, interrogated me. And this is a crazy thing to say, but when I asked the police officer why he thought that melting snow was a terroristic threat, he told me, you know, he says, you know, have you seen The Wizard of Oz before? Have you seen that movie? And I was like, yeah. And he says, well, what happens to the Wicked Witch? And I said, well, you know, she gets a bucket of water on her, she melts. And he's like, well, and she dies, right? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, that's what we're talking about. He says, what you said was basically melting people equaled killing people. That was his justification. And that is the reason why posting a picture to my private friend group was a terroristic threat. So in other words, using my Second Amendment right, you know, using my weapon, and my rifle rather, and talking about it with my First Amendment was enough for the state of Michigan to say that that was terrorism. And so what they proceeded to do after there was they left. They left me there for a day, and then they came back the next day and arrested me. So, I mean, believe this or not, I mean, they let somebody who they supposedly said was a terroristic threat, but they left me on campus for a whole day after that. It's a bizarre thing to think about, you know, that we can have our rights so easily trampled. You know, when I was at Lake State, there were people who came up to me privately and said, you know, we know who you are and we support what you say, but we can't do that publicly because we don't want to end up like you, you know? And it's cowardly. It's really cowardly. And I think a lot of conservatives need to start standing up for what's right and supporting the people and stop sacrificing on the altar of liberalism. You know, it's just crazy. Too many times, how many times do you guys see videos out there of people just, you know, getting, you know, whether it's something as small as getting their hat stolen or maybe something as bad as getting beaten up. How many times do you see people just stand there and do nothing, including the victim? They just stand there and do nothing about it. People need to start standing up for what's right. Because this kind of thing happened to me and nobody helped me out initially. I got lots of support eventually, right? And I really am grateful for that, for all of you here today and for everybody who supported me along the way, you know, whether they stayed or not. I appreciate every minute of it because if it wasn't for the support from everybody else, I would be a convicted terrorist. I mean, I had to raise a lot of money to basically defend myself and say that, you know, a post about a rifle and about offending people wasn't terrorism from a person who I had blocked and who wasn't even supposed to see it in the first place. And, you know, and they say that I, you know, had a false report or threat of terrorism. They're the ones who created that. They said that it was terrorism and they spread it around. You know, I didn't spread it anywhere. So they arrested me and I spent 3 months in jail, 3 years in home confinement, and it's still an additional year going on now. I'm still not even free totally yet. I've been allowed now to leave my home, which is great, but you know, even coming here is a slight risk to me, quite honestly. But I fuck them, I don't care. You know, really. So seriously, it's insane. You get sick of it after a while, and you get sick of doing what the cooperation. You know, I did everything I was supposed to do. I listened to every single word the policeman said. I listened to every single word the corrections officer said. I listened to every single word that the prosecutor said. And what happened to me? I got railroaded still. So, I mean, we continue on with this. Well, when I was in jail, how was I treated, you know? I made more friends in jail than I did at Lake State. The people in there were better people than the students at Lake State. You know? I mean, the people at Lake State most of the people I had problems with were other criminal justice students. I had my car windshield smashed out by a criminal justice student who's now a police officer. I had all kinds of crazy things happen while I was up there, and these people were just relentless, right? So, in jail, I made more friends, and I'm also a type 1 diabetic too. And so when I was in jail, I like to mention this because I think it's important. They did not know how to even treat me. They almost killed me in jail multiple times. I spent 5 days in the hole on medical disciplinary action because they couldn't control my blood sugar. They blamed me for it, despite the fact that I couldn't even regulate. I couldn't take the amount of insulin I wanted. I couldn't eat what I wanted to eat, and they blamed me for that. So they were very vindictive, even in jail. And by the time I finally got out, after my dad had to, pay a $250,000 bond for a picture of a rifle, you know, I want to mention that too. I want everybody to think about next time you see somebody on the news with a bond amount, I want you to consider their crime and consider how much they're getting paid. Because mine was $250,000 for a picture. And you see people out there, you know, assaulting police officers or burning buildings down, and they get like, you know, a $10,000 bond or something, you know? And so it's kind of, this thing was very political from the beginning. You know, the search warrant, the affidavit search warrant for my social media, they stated, we are aware of Gerhard and his extreme political views. That's what they said. That was the reasoning for searching all my stuff. They cited nothing else other than extreme political views. So that's what we're dealing with now in this country. And, you know, it's a crazy thing. So, and I know I'm not the only one here that's had to deal with that kind of stuff either, you know. And I'm probably the least well-known person here. We got Kyle and we got McCloskeys here that had to deal with all these crazy lefties out there. And, you know, so mine's pretty small scale comparatively. But anyway, as I was saying about the jail, I got out and I spent 3 years under confinement. They said that I could not use technology. I couldn't use it at all, even with without an internet connection. They said I couldn't have a cell phone. I had no connection. I couldn't leave the house. I had a tether ankle the whole time, despite the fact I wasn't a flea risk. And they admitted that in court. They told me they knew I wasn't a flea risk, so they said I was a danger to society. And again, I'm skipping over a lot of details here. I can't really even begin to explain all the little mitigating factors, all the little aggravating details of all the vindictive and petty stuff that the state, the county, and the school were willing to do to me to basically shut me down. And they failed. So, I mean, they failed really bad. We basically won. I mean, it's not over yet, like I said, but here we are now. I'm speaking to all of you, and I'm trying to get the message out there. But essentially, yeah, I mean, that's kind of the gist of it. There's tons of stuff. Red flag laws. I mean, if you really think about it, when I was charged, I did not believe red flag laws were actually instituted. And I'm not sure if they are now. I haven't really been paying too much attention. It's been kind of hectic running around with my own case. But, you know, I was red flagged. That was the thing. From day one at Lake State, I was flagged as a threat. And I wasn't a threat. I was not a terrorist. I didn't make any terroristic threat. I was a threat to their ideology of evil. I was not some threat in any way, shape, or form, other than the fact that they thought that, you know, the things I was saying was counterintuitive to their communist ideology. So, I mean, really, it's just these red flag laws have gotten out of control, and it's going to get even worse. You know, with the Supreme Court and the state of the Court of Appeals making decisions nowadays where people can't even go out there and say the things that are true to them. They are being persecuted based off their Second and First Amendments. And it's very important, you know? I mean, it makes you question why are they going after these things? And why are they going after people like me? I was a nobody up at Lake State that just so happened to be pro-gun, pro-Trump, pro-conservative, pro-everything, right? Pro-generative society. And they were pushing a very degenerative kind of notion on me the whole time. And, you know, what I think if anybody's going to learn anything from this is that years, whatever it is, nothing's happening, really. You know, I would love for things to be set right. It seems like justice is being evaded with this whole thing right now. Yeah, exactly. Justice, you know, and it starts with the education too. Again, but my whole problem started with the college and everything. Like, we got to get out there and we gotta educate our kids correctly instead of letting these communists and with these, you know, Kool-Aid in their hair, teach our kids about, you know, all this. You all know what this is about. It's really scary for the future of America right now. Amen. So, I mean, now is time to act. When's the best time to act? You know, when you're losing your freedom, is it before you lose it, or is it after you lose it? You know, when you lose your freedoms and you're over the hill, it's too late. It's too late to react because they already got all the guns, they've got all your rights, and they've passed all the legislation in order to do it legally. And it's too late. So the best time to act is now, and it's getting pretty close to being too late, honestly. I mean, they're doing a lot of stuff, even in the last few years. You know, it was a culture shock coming back out into the community. I was gone for 3 years, and you know, when things happen gradually, it's not so obvious. But when you see things from a very shocking point of view, like I did, where I was arrested in 2019 and I was released in 2022, late 2022. I mean, it was really crazy to see the kind of stuff that was going on. You know, and I missed all Kyle's stuff. I missed all the McCloskeys stuff. I missed all this craziness, these riots and these savages in the streets, you know, burning cities down. And when's it gonna stop? You know, I mean, it makes my thing seem small to me that, you know, I got in trouble for making a post about a rifle. I mean, you got people out there doing serious stuff, and our rights are threatened. You know, so I mean, I'm not really even sure what else to talk about. It's just everybody knows what must be done, but most people are afraid to do it. Most people are just too afraid. That's right. And we can't be afraid anymore. We just stand up for what's right. So I think I might leave it there, honestly. So yeah, thank you.
Hey, really quick, I just want to make one quick comment. It's been a while since I've seen Lucas. When the other side, the left, as Lucas talks about, he says, you know, they always freak out about different things. They always want to take people and they make them the posters. In the sense, we need to do a lot of the same thing. They like to talk about the victims of gun violence. You know, even the people that, you know, maybe something justifiable happened. You know, we got a speaker here in a little bit. We need to pay attention to the victims of gun control as well. Yeah. And we need to highlight their cases as well. Yeah. Exactly what he says. If they can label him a terrorist, what do they think about Phil here? What do they think about the rest of us? We need to make it very clear what their proposals lead to. They lead to absolutely ridiculous, incredibly absurd situation like this is here. And so thank him for his time. Come up to him, talk to him, hear more about the story, and I hope you all will support him very much, and others like him that show us the face of what their radical gun control results in.
Too, if anybody's got any questions, I'd really be happy to answer anything you guys gotta ask me. At any point, just walk up to me. No problem, I'm not scary, all right? I'm a terrorist, so. Absolutely, I support the militias. Absolutely, thanks. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks.
Lucas got one heck of a story, right? Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up for Lucas Gerhard, right there. Give a quick shout out to his father, who's a Marine. Hoorah. Hoorah. And look, guys, again, this happened to Lucas before all of this legislation happened, just 6 months ago. They're coming for us. They're coming for your stuff. They're coming for your guns, and they're going to bleed. And they've got more coming in the fall. So we have to stand up and start supporting these people. The next guest speakers that I would like to bring up, they didn't want to be, and I don't think any of these guys ever wanted to be famous. They just wanted to defend themselves. But the McCloskeys, a lot of people may not know their name. Infamy lies on the picture that was taken. When they were sitting there defending their home from Black Lives Matter rioters approaching on their property. They did what any sensible person would do and defend their property. They didn't shoot anybody. They didn't pull the trigger. They just said, hey, we're armed. Please don't destroy our stuff. And they were crucified for it. The media took them, wiped the earth with them. And to this day, they're still standing up. And I love the fact that these guys have come to Michigan, and I've gotten a lot of things actually about you guys coming to Michigan. They're like, oh my God, I can't believe they're coming from Michigan. These guys are from Missouri, the lawyer team duo that have been absolutely fantastic. They've been pardoned by the governor. I want to introduce the McCloskeys.
All right. Hey, my name's Mark McCloskey. I'm not running for a damn thing, okay? How many of us think we've got a right to be free? How many of us think we've got a right to defend ourselves? How many of us think we've got a right to defend ourselves with guns if necessary? How many of us recognize that these rights are not something granted to us by the government, given to us by God as human beings made in the image of the Lord? And what God gives us, no government should be allowed to take away. You know, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. All right, we're up here because all over this country, the government is attempting to take our guns away. You know, when I just recited the Second Amendment, did you hear anything about hunting? Did you hear anything about Bambi in a Kevlar vest? The reason we have a Second Amendment is because the drafters of our Constitution, the people that reduced our God-given rights to writing, recognized the fact that we needed to have an armed populace to keep the government from having a monopoly on power. And that's what the Second Amendment is all about. That's why we have gentlemen like this here sweating his ass off in armor, carrying a gun to protect our freedoms. Well, let me tell you a little bit about how I happen to be on this stage today. You know, I've been a lifelong Republican. My dad was a member of the John Birch Society. I've been campaigning against communist expansionism my entire life. I started giving public presentations against communist expansionism and this trend towards a single world socialist government in 1977 with Robert Mugabe's takeover of St. Louis. Takeover Rhodesia. The first guy to endorse my Senate campaign was Colonel Oliver North, because he and I have been friends for over 30 years since we started doing fundraisers for him when the government was persecuting him for trying to save this country. But you know, as a little bit of background, St. Louis, Missouri is a remarkably dangerous place. Those of you that live out here in the civilized world can't possibly imagine what it's like. A couple of years ago, Rudy Giuliani and Bernie Kerik, the former police commissioner in New York, came down and spent a couple of days with us. And when we were out to dinner, I was talking to Bernie about how the danger levels between New York City and the city of St. Louis. How many of us think New York City might be kind of a dangerous place, huh? Well, 8,400,000 residents of the city of New York. By that point that year, they had about 300 murders. City of St. Louis proper only has 3 citizens. We'd had 262 murders, almost 20 times the murder rate of New York City when they were having a bad year. And that's just a general level of background violence in St. Louis. Then you've got to add to that the George Floyd effect, all right? On June the 1st and June the 2nd of 2020, those people who claim the moral high ground, those people that claim superiority to us and are champions of diversity and equity and inclusion, decided to show their love for the city of St. Louis by burning it down. That night, they burned down downtown St. Louis. They shot 4 police officers. They killed retired police captain David Dorn. He was doing secondary employment at a pawn shop about a half a mile from my house. But the most impressive thing my wife and I watched, we saw this on a live helicopter feed from downtown St. Louis. The 7-Eleven in downtown St. Louis, 2 blocks from police headquarters, somebody threw a brick through the window, broke out the glass. The mob came in and looted the place empty. Then they set it on fire. The place becomes engulfed in flames. The roof caves in. 10, 20, 30, 40 minutes we watched this. And you know how many police showed up? 0. No matter how many firemen showed up? 0. We look at each other and we say, you know, when the fit hits the shan, you're out there and you're wild lonesome. And during that month, more and more of the buildings in our neighborhood started getting trashed, and more buildings got boarded up. There's a little mom and pop pharmacy around the corner from my office, which is 3 blocks further into the ghetto than my house. One day we go over there and the steel roll-up doors had torn off their tracks and the windows are all boarded up. So I went to the owner and I said, what happened? He said, last Friday the alarm went off. I said, did you come down and see what was going on? He said, no, I didn't want to get killed. I said, so what happened? Well, they came in, they stole everything they could steal, they broke everything they couldn't break. How long were they in there? 5 hours. I said, the cops ever show up? He said, yeah, 10 hours after the alarm went off. Once again, when the fit hits the shan, you're out there and you're wild lonesome. Well, my wife and I had made a vow that if it came our direction, we weren't going to let it happen to us. And you know, one of the advantages of living in a Democrat-controlled city now for 79 years is that's how long the Democrats one-party rule in St. Louis. One of the advantages is that criminals don't have to fear repercussion for crime. And so in our case, this Antifa organization put out a flyer saying they're going to have a mob action in our neighborhood. And this mob is organized by a young lady whose name you may know, Cori Bush, now the United States Representative from the 1st District of Missouri. She's heading this Antifa mob called Expect Us St. Louis. And they say they're going to come and have a mob action in our neighborhood. Well, because we know they like to burn stuff, and there's a lot of things in our house, including us, that we didn't want to have burned up, I went out and got a whole bunch of fire extinguishers and put them around the first floor. And because we know they like to shoot people, and we didn't want to get shot without putting up a fight, I put a whole bunch of guns around the house. Well, that Sunday afternoon, June the 28th, 2020, our daughter had come in from Chicago. She was 30 at the time, to have dinner with us on the patio. We started hearing the mob forming down the street. And you started hearing the chants, all the same dumbass stuff. Our streets, no justice, no peace, no racist police. And my favorite one, because it was being chanted, the favorite one, because it's being chanted through a megaphone by Cori Bush, is, you can't stop the revolution. You can't stop the revolution. Well, all of a sudden, I live in a private neighborhood. There's a neighborhood back 130 years ago when St. Louis was a big, dirty industrial town. People that could do so bought some farmland out in the country, put a wall around it, and called them private places. They're now all engulfed in the city itself. But I live in one of those, and we're separated by a wall and steel iron gates from the rest of St. Louis. There's a 6-lane public street that goes right outside my gate. That's called Kings Highway Boulevard. All of a sudden, when we start hearing these chants, and you hear them thumping their sticks and their feet in the ground, all of a sudden, all of Kings Highway Boulevard, 100 feet wide, as far south as we could look, is filled with these people, angry people, screaming, shouting, spittle coming out of their mouth. I look over at Patty and I say, God, I hope they don't come this direction. Right then, the gate bursts open and they start pouring in. Well, I stood out on the corner of the porch and I said the two most racist, white supremacist words known in the English language. I said, private property. Now, being communist, that pissed them off, right? And so they start storming in more and more and more. And I'm standing out there with my AR now. I pulled it from around the corner where I had it. And I'm standing there holding my AR, saying all kinds of mean, nasty, unpleasant things to this mob, like, get out of my neighborhood, private property. I actually swore once. I said, get the hell out of my neighborhood. And they just keep pouring in more and more. Now, Patty and our daughter had gone into the house to call 911 to absolutely no avail. But then she realizes that I can't see anything past the east side of our yard, and the mob's completely covering the street. So she goes out the front door. All of a sudden, you know, I think I'm doing pretty good. I'm standing up there with my rifle. I got about 20 feet of grass, a hedge, a low wall, and about another 20 feet of grass between me and the mob. Now I see Patty show up in front of me, 2 feet from the nearest gangster, waving that dumbass little Bryco pistol over her head. And now I've got a problem because she's in my line of fire, right? And so if I have to do something, I might accidentally put a bullet in her. We'd been married 35 years at that point. I didn't want to accidentally, you know, put a pellet in her. So now I've got to come out on the front porch. And now that's when you start seeing all the pictures like you'll see up there. But here's the advantage of the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution. Two of us with two guns facing a mob of 350 to 500, who, by the way, we're not social justice warriors walking calmly on their way to the mayor's house, because A, mayor don't live in our neighborhood. Mayor does not live in a private place. Mayor lives 2 blocks north and a half a mile west of our house. Secondly, they had to break down that gate to store him in. The minute they broke down that gate, they stopped being a peaceful protest and started being an angry mob. And they're screaming, I'm going to murder you. I'm going to rape and murder your wife. We're going to burn down your house. You got a business. Your business is gone. They even threatened to kill our dog, right? But we stood there and we held our peace. If you look closely at the picture that will come up on the truck there in a minute, or my souvenir cards, you'll see that the selector switch with my AR is in the fire position, because it was not this passive event that the media likes to portray. The story behind that particular moment was that there are 2 guys wearing body armor. One guy wearing camo, he comes up the steps and he reaches into his ammo pouches and pulls out 2 loaded magazines. He's close enough I can see that they're loaded with shells, clicks them together, points at me and says, you are next. Guy next to him is wearing Desert Shield type body armor. He turns around, it says human shield on the back, and he's packing a sidearm. And they keep creeping up closer and closer and closer. I look over at Patty and I say, if those guys come any closer, I'm going to have to kill them. And Patty leans over to me and she says, you're not killing anybody tonight. The voice of reason. But we didn't have to shoot anybody. We didn't have to fire a shot. But we held off a mob of 350 to 500 people. And that's the value of the Second Amendment. Now, what y'all probably don't know, because the media didn't pick it up, because it's counter-narrative and it's hard to sell as peaceful social justice warriors, we got a tip that next Tuesday from a client of ours who is a brainwashed member of that Antifa organization, who called up and said that what we did was inexcusable. They're on Friday that we were going to have to die and they're going to burn down the house and there's nothing we can do about it. And this wasn't just some kind of idle comment. This was a lady who we'd known for years. We'd represented her and her mom and her sisters. We went to her high school graduation. When her husband got out of the Army, he joined the St. Louis Police Department, got depressed and shot himself. We went to his funeral. There'd be times when we'd be the only Caucasians at their family events. We thought of these people as family. But she had become brainwashed by this Antifa organization. And so we know we're going to die on Friday. We called up the guys that sometimes we have to hire for secondary employment, St. Louis City and St. Louis County cops. They wanted no part of it for fear of the bad press. We got referred to this place down in Farmington, Missouri. They do high-tech security all over the world, a place called Asymmetric Response, bunch of special forces guys. They'd gotten negative publicity over the Ferguson riots. They wouldn't do it. So I said to the owner, what the hell am I supposed to do? And he says, if I were you, I'd just take what I can't live without, put it in the vehicles, and abandon the house. And I said, no effing way in heck we're going to do that. We'll go down with the ship if we have to, but there's no way we're going to abandon our house to the mob. Well, earlier that week, I'd gotten a call from the White House, and someone said, the president wants to express his support, and if there's ever anything we can do for you, give us a call. So now it's Thursday night, and we're planning on dying the next day, so I called that number back up, and I said, well, now's a pretty stinking good time, okay? And so he gave me Mark Meadows' cell phone number, chief of staff, and I called up Mark Meadows and told him this story. Next call I made was to Tucker Carlson, and Tucker puts this live on the air. He says, I'm talking to Mark McCloskey. I can hear Mrs. McCloskey sobbing in the background. The mob's coming back tomorrow to kill him. The local police have been ordered to stand down. The state's not going to provide them with any cover. And if we don't do something, they're going to die. Well, to make a long story short, when the mob hit the gate that next Tuesday, I mean, that next Friday night, the miracle started to happen. There was a guy who was a ex-Navy SEAL, fourth-generation cattle farmer from Kansas. When he heard the call to arms, he took his gear and threw it in the back of his pickup truck, drove straight through and got there at about 6:30. By the time the mob hit the gate that night, we had 6 ex-Navy SEALs. We had 10 secondary employment cops. We had the FBI light aircraft circling the top of the house. We had what we used to call in the Reagan administration, peace through superior firepower. And once again, we held them off, right? We didn't have to shoot anybody. We did have a pretty good show of force. 2 things I always like to talk about from that night. One is that once again, here's Cori Bush, now Congresswoman Cori Bush, an overt, active communist, standing outside my gate again that Friday night, chanting into the megaphone, you can't stop the revolution. Actually, she had a really nice singing voice. I can't approximate it. You can't stop the revolution. Jim, the SEAL, resting his hands on the butt of his M4, standing next to me, says, oh, yes, I can. Second thing I always like to relate, it's about 2:30 in the morning, right? And Jim, that SEAL was my personal protection that night. We made a big point of being outside on the porch, on the patios, so that people could see that they hadn't intimidated us. About 2:30 in the morning, Jim jumps on me and knocks me down. I say, what the hell's going on? He says, well, we were scoping some of the surrounding high-rises, and we saw somebody scoping back and thought you're about to get taken out. Right then, his radio goes off. Turns out it was an FBI sniper doing cover for us. So, the good news that night. We got the all clear at about 4:30 in the morning. And we got a couple hours of sleep. At about 6:30 in the morning, we realized we'd survived it. We hung a big American flag outside the front of our house, and we made a vow that day that we were going to do everything we could for the rest of our lives to pull back our freedoms, to restore our republic, to make this United States the way it was when we were kids. And we figured the best way to do that was go to work for President Trump. And so we joined the Trump campaign. We started out campaigning with Colonel Allen West down in Texas. For a while, Patty and I wore the Team Trump bus in Pennsylvania. That's where Patty is from. And you know, it was not very hard stepping out of that Team Trump bus to talk to people. By the way, you got to imagine what this was like. We'd pull up from town to town. There'd be people lining the streets with, you know, Make America Great Again banners and Trump banners and shouting and clapping. You get out of the bus. And it's not very hard to sell people on the concept that the president who had restored us to the greatest nation on earth, where we had the highest employment figures in every demographic. We had oil self-sufficiency. we had a strong military and a closed border. It wasn't very hard to sell that as a positive message. But you know what? Our reward for standing up against that mob was that the city of St. Louis circuit attorney charged Patty and me with 2 felonies each. 2 Class C felonies that would cost us 4 years in the slammer, our law licenses, ruin the rest of our lives. And you know, fortunately, this Soros-funded prosecutor, go nameless, Kim Gardner, just as dumb as a sack of hammers. And so she used us in her campaign propaganda to raise money. So we filed a motion to have her excluded on the basis of her bias, and we got her and the entire circuit attorney's office barred from our case. So then we got a special prosecutor appointed who was a Barack Obama U.S. attorney for 8 years. So we figured that might not work out so well, but it finally did. And the quirk of Missouri law is that the governor can't pardon you until you've finally been found guilty of something. So we had to find something to plead to that would be nominal, essentially not a crime, just a fine, so the governor could give us a full pardon. And we did that, and we thought that was the end of it. But then, just to make life that much sweeter, the Missouri Bar Association decided that what we did in standing up on our front porch and defending ourselves against a mob that threatened to kill us was a crime of moral turpitude, and that we shouldn't be allowed to practice law anymore. So they suggested to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court agreed that we should have our licenses suspended for 6 months, probated for a year. Patty just got her get-out-of-jail-free card last week. I got my get-out-of-jail-free card in February. But that's what happens to you if you stand up. There's only one unforgivable crime in America today, and that's standing up against the left. If you're on the left, you can commit any crime you want to. A guy I was on the radio with a couple of months ago put it this way, and I thought it was very succinct. In this country today, you're not considered innocent until proven guilty. You're considered guilty until proven Democrat. And that's exactly the way things are. People on the press, people even on Fox News, which I used to be on somewhat frequently until they showed their true rhino colors, call it a 2-tiered justice system. But there's no such thing as a 2-tiered justice system. If there is not equal protection under the law, there is no justice system. There's only tyranny, and that's what we have today. We have a federal government that has absolute disdain for the Constitution, absolute disdain for our freedoms, absolute disdain for our God-given rights. We have a president that openly acknowledges that his programs are unconstitutional, but does them anyway. 2 weeks ago, the Supreme Court declared his student loan giveaway unconstitutional, and so what he's doing now, a new unconstitutional student loan giveaway. He created, in the United States of America, with the First Amendment to the Constitution, he created a disinformation governance board, a federal censorship board. It took a judge in Louisiana last week to issue an order compelling the federal government to not conspire with big tech to censor us. You imagine that in the United States of America? And then ask yourself this. Next time you think about voting for somebody, think about this. Where were 49 United States Republican senators? Why weren't they standing on the Capitol steps screaming, "We cannot have this in the United States of America. We cannot have this with the First Amendment to the Constitution"? All you got was crickets. Where was Mitch McConnell? When the FBI raids Mar-a-Lago, when they go through Melania Trump's underwear drawer, when they search Barron Trump's lockers, when they invade the home of the President of the United States and the front runner for re-election to the presidency of the United States, when they invade his home, where is Kevin McCarthy? Where is Mitch McConnell? Where is every single Republican that should have stood up and said, "We are not a banana republic. We cannot have this in a free republic. We are the United States of America"? Absolute stinking crickets. It makes absolutely no difference if they've got an R behind their name or a D behind their name, because every one of these things is going the same direction. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what we now call the Great Reset. We call this a single world socialist government, going towards what Klaus Schwab says over in Davos: you will own nothing and you'll be happy, or else. And what are the January 6th political prisoners all about, right? Out of the 350 to 500 people that broke down my gate, stormed into my neighborhood, threatened to kill me, rape and murder my wife, burn down my house, burn down my office building, even kill my dog, Not one of those people has done a day in jail. Why are the January 6ers rotting in that gulag in D.C.? It's not just to punish them. It's to threaten all of us. To say, intimidate the rest of us. To say that if you're willing to stand up for your freedom, stand up for your rights, stand up for your God-given human rights, that we will cut your head off, that we will crush you. Ask Roger Stone about it. Ask General Mike Flynn. They will want to crush you economically. I said the day after our first event, on June the 29th, that Monday morning, I said, the first TV interview I did, I said if I'd been the managing partner of the largest law firm in St. Louis, that Monday morning, I'd have to get out there and do the apology to her. Apologize for being born. Apologize for being white. Apologize for being successful. And I'd still get fired, and I still wouldn't have a job till today. And you know what? That's what intimidates everybody else. That's why nobody stands up. But ladies and gentlemen, if you think that the government is going to save you, that some cavalry is going to come riding over the hill and save us and restore our freedom, you are dead wrong. How many of us here think there's going to be some kind of political solution to our current crisis? I ask that every rally. I never see a hand go up. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a real stinking problem. And I tell you this, I've been, after we got done with the Trump campaign, people started asking me if I wanted to run for Senate, since our senior rhino Republican in Missouri was not going to run for re-election. And I said no, because, I'd been an active person in politics in the background, and fundraisers and such, never had any interest in elective politics. But people kept asking. Well, there's a neighbor of mine that was in the Reagan cabinet, and so I called up and I said, what do you think about the concept of me running for U.S. Senate? And he said, just go outside, drive some nails through your feet, it'll feel better and it won't take as long, okay? I did not heed his advice. But, the bottom line is that what we learned on the campaign trail was the greatest education I've ever had. Because the one thing we learned, Missouri used to be a very, very blue state. Now it's a very, very red state. We've got, because they know that as a Democrat, those are not constitutional conservatives. Those are not people that respect the Constitution. Those are not common view. Ladies and gentlemen, if we're going to save this republic, if we're going to pull back our freedoms, each and every one of us needs to take a stand for our own freedom. We need to stand up and just say no. I do this in every single speech. I recite those lines from the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that amongst these are life, liberty. 247, I think, years ago, stood up in Philadelphia and said, I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death. And that's the point we're at in the United States today, that you have to be willing to risk everything. Your livelihood, your home, your fortunes, your business, your lives if necessary. That was the price of forming this country. That's going to be the price of preserving this country. So each and every one of us need to take that personal stand for freedom. To stand in the way of tyranny. All of you who are Second Amendment advocates might remember when David Chipman was running for the position of the head of ATF. And they asked, because he always wants to do away with what he calls assault weapons, they asked him if he could identify or define an assault weapon. He was unable to do so. Well, a couple of days later, I was on a national TV program, and I was giving him shit about that, pardon my language. And so the guy says, you're so smart, Mr. McCloskey, can you describe an assault weapon? I said, sure, it's easy. It's an effective defense against an overreaching government. And that's what we have a duty to do, a right to do, a God-given right to do. And each and every one of us needs to be prepared to stand up for our own freedom, to be proud to be Americans, to proud to have our God-given rights, proud of the Constitution, proud to kneel when we pray, and stand for the American flag. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Wow, that wasn't powerful enough, right? The McCloskeys, I know. What a fantastic story, and what a way to bring up the next speaker. But before we bring up the next speaker... Oh.
Here the she said she didn't like speaking in public, even though she's great at it. Say again, get her on for Patty McCloskey. She stood up against the mob.
I just want to let everybody know that Lucas, the McCloskeys, and Kyle Rittenhouse will be right back there in that VIP tent at 4 p.m. today. 4 p.m. today, we are selling tickets for that VIP right over there by that truck. That's photo opportunities, that's food, that's an opportunity to mingle. Dinner for the high VIP, $150, $150. That's where you're at. $150, $100, and $50. The tickets are going fast, so if you want to, they're right there. Make sure you get them now because they're going to go. Guys, we need to go ahead and support every single one of these speakers. The next speaker, I don't think really needs a whole lot of introduction. The next speaker did what any good God-fearing American would do and defended himself against tyrants and those who would attack and threaten his life. He was there on peaceful reasons. He was there to help out. He was there to do what the law enforcement and state agencies were not doing. And when they're not willing to stand up and protect the people, it is the duty of the people to defect and defend the people. So it is my privilege and my honor to introduce to all of you Mr. Kyle Rittenhouse.
Ladies and gentlemen, I stand before you today not just as a young man who has experienced more than his fair share of adversity, but as a testament to the enduring power and necessity of our constitutional rights. We all know the story. During the turmoil-filled summer of 2020, I found myself cornered, facing an unthinkable decision that no one should ever be forced to make. The riots left me with no choice but to defend my life, using my firearm to protect myself from harm. Today I am here to share my story and my beliefs and to voice my concerns about disturbing trends I've observed in our nation, especially concerning our constitutional rights. Recalling the chaotic night in Kenosha, I was confronted with a harsh reality, the imperative of survival. When attacked, I resorted to my firearm to protect my life, invoking my Second Amendment rights. If we didn't have the right to bear arms embedded in our Constitution, I might not have been here today to stand in front of you and recount my tale. But we find ourselves living in a difficult era. It's an era where our rights, particularly those concerning the Second Amendment, are under constant scrutiny. Let's take the great state of Michigan as an example. Governor Gretchen Whitmer and her anti-freedom cohorts are hell-bent on shredding Second Amendment rights for law-abiding Michiganders. There are ongoing efforts to introduce more red flag laws and implement a ban on AR-15s, a semi-automatic rifle, which have become major points of contention. Red flag laws, formerly known as extreme risk protection orders, are designed to allow law enforcement or immediate family members to petition a court to temporarily remove firearms from individuals who are perceived to pose a threat to themselves or others. This might seem reasonable at first glance. After all, we all want to prevent tragedies and ensure the safety of our communities. However, when we examine this legislation more closely, we begin to see the potential pitfalls. The problem is that these laws could infringe on our Fourth Amendment rights, which protect us from unreasonable searches and seizures. Red flag laws could potentially allow firearms to be confiscated without sufficient due process based merely on suspicion or accusations. This can set a dangerous precedent, undermining the very core of our constitutional rights. Furthermore, the subjectivity of someone as a threat could potentially lead to the misuse or abuse of these laws, hence the undermining the very essence of our judicial system, which is based on concrete evidence and fair trials. The debate around red flag laws recalls a timeless quote by Benjamin Franklin: "Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserves neither liberty nor safety. This sentiment is a crucial reminder of the need to strike a careful balance between individual rights and collective safety, a balance that our founding fathers deeply understood and endeavored to enshrine in our Constitution. Simultaneously, we're witnessing a growing debate around the proposed AR-15 ban in Michigan. This rifle has long been in the sights of those advocating for stricter gun control. But the question we need to ask ourselves, does banning a specific type of firearm genuinely solve our safety concerns, or does it merely chip away at our constitutional rights? According to our laws and the Constitution, the AR-15, a semi-automatic rifle, is a lawful weapon. It is owned by millions of Americans for various purposes, including self-defense, hunting, and sports. Threatening the right to own such a firearm isn't just about the AR-15. It's about the encroachment on a broader fundamental right to bear arms. Let's dive a little deeper into the issue. If we look at crime statistics, handguns are used in the majority of gun crimes in the United States, not the AR-15. Yet, the AR-15 has become a symbolic target, a representation of a larger movement to curtail our rights. The proposed ban extends beyond just one weapon. It symbolizes a struggle to preserve our constitutional freedoms in their entirety. Grassroots organizations like the Great Lakes Gun Rights, Texas Gun Rights, I'm from Texas, and National Association for Gun Rights are at the forefront of defending these at both state and national levels to safeguard our Second Amendment rights. Great Lakes Gun Rights, for instance, has been essential in advocating for gun rights of Michigan residents and fighting back against the agenda of gun ban politicians. Yeah. They've actively opposed red flag laws, rallied public sentiment against the AR-15 ban, and championed pro-gun legislation here in Michigan, legislator. The work they do is crucial in ensuring that our constitutional rights are not quietly eroded. That's why I want everybody to go right now, pull out your cell phones, go to greatlakesgunrights.org. I believe that's it. Go check out Brendan's booth over there and sign up now, sign his petition, make sure to become a member. Without groups like Great Lakes Gun Rights and Michigan Open Carry, things could be far worse. These folks called out a weak-kneed Republican like Minority Leader Matt Hall for bending the knee to compromise and opening the door for red flag gun confiscation. Discipline begins at home, and all conservatives must first hold Republicans accountable before they can ever truly hope to retake the legislative majorities in the Wolverine state. Because what is the point of a Republican majority if they are going to pass the same gun control as the gun-grabbing Democrats? But there are also several Democrats in the very pro-gun districts who betrayed their constituents this year. That's why supporting efforts to recall these gun ban politicians from office are so important. And groups like Great Lake Gun Rights is on the forefront of exposing their records to bring positive policy change. At a national level, the National Association for Gun Rights works tirelessly to protect our rights. Their efforts include lobbying against federal red flag laws and the ban of the AR-15, reminding us that the vital role of civic engagement and vigilance play in maintaining our rights. In the heart of the Kenosha chaos, I found myself alone, targeted by a man named Joseph Rosenbaum, a man who explicitly threatened to kill me. If I catch you alone, I'm going to effing kill you. Those were the words that he spoke to me that night. He did catch me alone. He chased me down and cornered me, leaving me with no choice but to defend my life. The choice I made to defend myself wasn't just about survival. It was a testament to why our right to bear arms is essential. The case of Daniel Perry in Texas, the great state of Texas, out of all places. It was a similar case, but it's less known. He was surrounded by rioters, with one aiming an AK-47 at him. Daniel was forced to defend himself. Unfortunately, his legal outcome diverged from mine, and he's currently serving a prison sentence. The thought that one could be punished for choosing to survive is deeply unsettling. These are not just the laws and bans we're discussing. We're talking about our rights, our freedom, and our lives. As we navigate these challenging times, witnessing the rise in mental illness, crime, and violence, we must question whether we will stand by as our rights are chipped away, or will raise our voices, assert our concerns, and fight for the preservation of our constitutional rights. Let's not forget the privilege we have being born in this great nation. The United States of America has afforded us freedoms many people across the world can only dream of. We have the duty to protect these freedoms for our generations. It's our responsibility. It's our responsibility to call out these rhinos and these Democrats that are pushing these anti-gun legislation and go and vote for the right people. And if somebody votes for a bad bill, we need to vote somebody in that's going to change that bill and change the laws here in Michigan. Thank you guys all for coming out, and I look forward to meeting all of you guys in the VIP reception. I know some of you guys signed up, and I hope you guys are having a great time, and look forward to speaking with you guys more.
Ladies and gentlemen, Kyle Rittenhouse. Kyle Rittenhouse, ladies and gentlemen. You know, these events are so incredibly important. And I'm just going to reiterate that one more time. They're so very, very important to do. But we need more attendance. We need more people. Because it's the same people. We got some new people. I love seeing some of the new faces, by the way. Thank God for you guys being out here and really stepping up for your Second Amendment rights. Thank you to the militia that came out here and are providing security, because they're actually sticking their necks out and then doing the right thing. So thank you to the militia that's out here. I appreciate you guys. Thank you to the security team that's out here providing security all around and making sure the event is gone off without a hitch. I appreciate you guys. And thank you for the tons of vendors that we have out there, guys. Make sure you're reaching out and you're talking to your vendors, you're talking to your candidates. You're doing everything you can to support those that support your Second Amendment. Before we go, I want to bring Lucas up here real quick. He's got a message for you. And then we're going to close in prayer, because I think that's incredibly important.
Hello, everyone. I'd just like to say that you can come and meet me at the VIP tent pretty soon here and come and talk and sign stuff, right? Yep, come talk, sign stuff, do whatever. I'll be there. So come on over. I'll be appreciated. Get VIP tickets and stuff? Yep. All right, sweet. See you there soon.
Yep. So come meet Kyle. Come meet the McCloskeys. Come meet Lucas over the VIP tent. Tickets are right over there. Make sure you guys get it. Before we end this and continue on with the VIP event afterwards, I'd like to introduce a good friend of mine, former gubernatorial candidate and the founder of Michigan Lighthouse Ministries, Mr. Ralph Rebrand.
Thanks, John. Hello, everyone. Just what was mentioned about the VIPs. There are a few tickets left for that. So make sure you get over there. You get some free food. You get some photos. You get some signatures, as Lucas was saying. I want to say to the McCloskeys and to Kyle, when you guys were arrested in all the mayhem, we were praying for you. America was praying for you, because we knew how crazy that was. And we appreciate the stand you took. I'm going to make a statement that is going to probably catch all of you by surprise. But the statement is this, that the American Revolution and the freedoms that you and I enjoy here as Americans were secured by pastors. You're probably looking at me like a dog or a sheep at a new gate, wondering what on earth is he talking about. If you go back to the original sources in America, you look at statements made by King George, by Horace Walpole, by people who were favorable to the British during the American Revolution. They called the American Revolution a Presbyterian revolt. Those are pastors. In fact, when Cornwallis surrendered at Yorktown, all but one colonel was a Christian. All of them. And all pastors, because they understood that our rights to protect ourselves are God-given rights. And they were willing to fight for those. They were willing to say, look, we're not leaving this kind of tyranny to our children and our grandchildren. It's amazing because the statement I made about the freedoms that you and I enjoy, we have because of pastors stepping out of the pulpit and into the fight. That statement I could talk to you all afternoon about. I could talk to you all evening about it. I could share fact after fact after fact. And the reality, folks, as John mentioned, is I've started Michigan Lighthouse Ministries because I am helping pastors understand not only the danger we are in, but helping them to empower, encourage, and educate their congregations to stand up. So having said that, I want to just say thank you for being here, and I want to call upon the God of heaven and earth, the same God that our founders who fought for our freedoms called upon. So if you'll remove your hats, fellas, as we enter into the presence of God, as we ask his blessing not only on our lives, but on our country, and particularly on our state, in light of the lunacy that's going on in Lansing right now. Our Father, as we come before you this day, we pray that the same miracles, the same power, the same truth that you inspired the pastors with and the congregations in the American Revolution, that you would bring that to bear in the lives of churches all across Michigan. We pray, Lord, that we would be a lighthouse to the nation. We ask, God, that as we understand that just as the commandments say you shall not kill, there's a flip side. We have the right to protect ourselves. You shall not steal. We have the right to protect our goods. And so, Lord, as we pray to you this day, I ask for your richest blessing on these patriots who have stood up. I pray that you would encourage them, that they would not live in fear, because fear is only a spirit. It's not a person. It's something that we can overcome. I pray that you would give us the courage that they had. That, Lord, when we face evil in our society, and we even face evil in our legislature, and we even face evil in our neighborhoods, that we would have that courage to stand up and say, enough is enough. And so, Lord, we know that, as I said on the campaign trail, unless we get God right in this next election, nothing will matter. We did not get God right in this election. And I just pray, God, that you would share your special grace upon this amazing state, and that you would enable us as citizens who not only love this world you've made, but that we love Jesus and that we love our country. I pray, God, that you would give us the courage, the perseverance, and the stamina to fight this fight for not only ourselves, but our grandchildren. Because indeed, Lord, the soul of America is at stake. And we give you our thanks in the name of Jesus, who rose again from the dead. Amen and amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Don't forget to get your VIP tickets, and we'll see you all in the VIP tent. Thank you.